Good evening. We'll now call this November board meeting of the Methacton School Board Directors to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So by way of announcements, just notify the public that the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purpose of rebroadcasting. Also like to announce Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, but you probably already knew that. By way of attendance, all board members are present. So we'll move on to recognition of guests and scheduled speakers. Before I turn it over to Dr. Zerby, I will make one housekeeping item. Item 5E, the PSSA and Keystone Data Report for 2015. We're going to move until the December 1st meeting, as we have two board meetings within a week and a lopsided agenda. In order to even it out, we're going to move that presentation to 12/1. So we'll look forward to that next week. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Zerby.
Thanks, Mr. President. I asked the board if they would please take seats in the front row. We have several recognitions of guests and speakers that we have to present to the board and the public this evening. So please take your seats in the first row.
Start with the band one, okay? So that to give you time to talk with Troy. So why don't you put that PowerPoint up? We got to bring the screen down, okay? Band presentation to give Michael time to get in touch with Troy. Jim Pappas right here. The student's not here?
He's not.
Well, we will make an announcement and then we'll issue the certificate. Mr. Roth, if you wouldn't mind please coming forward. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to share with you not only a donation that was given to us recently on behalf of the music boosters of the Methacton School District, but also this evening we wanted to pay tribute and thanks to a student, a Methacton student that had designed the logo that is now affixed to the marching band trailer. And here this evening to present that award is Mr. James Pop.
Thank you. Mike, a little bit of background on the trailer.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to give you some background on the trailer.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Zerby, thank you very much. Just a little history about the trailer. What started out as an idea came to fruition this year. We're thrilled that we finally have a trailer for the band. The board voted in June, in the June school board meeting, to accept the donation for the purchase of the trailer. We went about purchasing the trailer, getting the trailer ordered. We received delivery of the trailer in early September, and at that time we looked to put some graphics on the trailer that would clearly identify the trailer as belonging to the Methacton Marching Band. We had a student that is actually a member of the Methacton Marching Band, Tyler Burns, submitted a design for the trailer, and that's what you see on the screen in front of you. And we got the image, the graphics installed on the trailer just in time for homecoming, and we unveiled the trailer that you see in front of you. The trailer is not only a great source of pride for Methacton High School and Methacton Marching Band, but it also cuts the time required to load the trailer and unload the trailer, and we'll have a trailer for many, many years to come. So with that, Tyler Burns, we'd like to present a certificate.
fast, so fast.
All right.
Holly, you want to turn your
Oh, yeah,
certificate
I should
over?
probably do that.
No sweat, no sweat.
Photoshop it in.
Thank you, Congressman.
No problem. Thank you so much. Very well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. We're having some technical difficulties, so we're moving around on the agenda real quick. So our next item on the guest and scheduled speakers is a check presentation from the Education Foundation for the Methacton community. I ask that Mark Constable, please come forward. Sorry, Mark.
This is a tough day today.
It is.
Thank you. We're very happy to be able to make two presentations today of checks. For those of you unfamiliar with the foundation, the Education Foundation for the Methacton community is comprised of a volunteer board made up of educators, business people, parents within the Methacton School District who believe in doing the best we can to help support academics, athletics, and the arts in Methacton. And one of the things we've tried to do is help with a variety of activities in the academic area. We partnered up with Ambler Savings. They've been a big help to the foundation. And the first check we'd like to share is a $3,000 check to the Electric Car Club for the environmental lab that they have. They go to competitions representing Methacton. If you're not familiar with that Electric Car Club and the environmental lab, they have 2 electric vehicles. They are battery-powered, recharged through solar energy, solar panels. They have a panel truck which they have retrofitted. It runs on biodiesel fuel that they convert. They tow the electric vehicles to competitions using the panel truck, and they also have a learning station inside the panel truck. It continues to be a work in progress. Mr. Steve Savitz, who is the sponsor, is also our science department chairperson here at Methacton High School, has indicated that they expect to be moving around to each of the elementary buildings later this spring, partially thanks to the $3,000 grant and the support we've been receiving from Ambler Savings Bank. So, $3,000?
Do you want to bring your other board members up?
Yeah, the rest of the board, come on up. We have 4 additional board members who, would you like to come up and stand behind the check to get your photo op here? Well, we'll Photoshop you in. We go right into the second one? We go right into the second check?
Why don't we do a presentation of this check?
Okay.
I'll take a photo, and then we can move
All right,
to the next
go ahead.
one. All right.
Christian?
Christian?
FedEx at Air France Cargo, among others, just for some work.
We'll take care of
It's
that.
pretty terrifying.
It is, in fact, it's something that we've seen before. In the UK, there was a situation where somebody who worked within the UK airports has been radicalized.
Only
traveling
one
back
really
and forth to Bangladesh. Ultimately,
Next time I'll do my rapid like athletic.
originally he was detected.
The second check this evening is a check to the Warrior Pride Capital Campaign project. The foundation has been very supportive of this project, and working together with the community, we're very fortunate to be able to run several different events throughout the year. And with the support of the community, we've taken a lot of the funds from those events and we put them into our capital campaign fund, which transfers into the Warrior Pride Capital Campaign Fund. Today we'd like to present a check for $15,483.33 to the Warrior Pride Capital Campaign, and some events that you might have been familiar with, you might have participated in. Part of the funds that came in through the beef and beverage activity where we partnered with the Warrior Pride Capital Campaign Committee is in that, as well as the funds that we received from the Methacton Alumni and Friends Golf Tournament, which we held in, let's see, that would be October, right before homecoming. And those funds, along with a lot of hard work from the members of the Methacton board and the board of the foundation, there's your $15,483. So we're glad to be able to provide that today.
Okay. Just make sure we look good.
This time I'll take like a dozen.
Okay.
Feel like the paparazzi.
Okay, shoulders down.
For Carol.
One more.
Chin's out.
Chin's out.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
One last thing. That night, when we were working to raise the money during the beef and beverage, what I didn't mention, not a part of that money, was an additional $13,000 that individuals pledged that evening. So that goes into the pot as well. So they ran a tremendous event. We were just glad we could help. Thank you.
Ready? Excellent. Oh, very good, yes.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, everybody wave themselves, hurry up. It does give me great pleasure this evening to introduce Sue Caddy. Sue was formerly a high school teacher for us last year, is now stationed at Arcola, and Sue is recognized as one of our lead teachers within the Methacton School District. And Sue has some exciting news to share with the board as well as with the community. And we hope that you'll join in us in recognizing something pretty extraordinary. And without any further ado, Ms. Caddy.
Come on, boys. All right. On July 2nd of this year, I traveled with 8 teenagers, and we flew to Grapevine, Texas. We thanked the board for giving us funds and also the belief in us. We thank the Education Foundation, who did a tremendous job and was very generous to us. We did our own. We raised our own money also. This was actually our second national competition. You have to qualify at states. And to do that, you compete against all of the schools in a tri-county area plus in New Jersey. We competed against the #1 high school in the United States, and our team beat them. We traveled to Grapevine to compete nationally. This was our second national competition. Last year, we went to the National Convention Center in Washington, D.C. in a flaming school van. But we got there anyway, and we did very well. They came in 5th and 6th. This year, we had 2 team members that were very ill. I'd like to introduce the 2 that are here. This is Kevin Bijou, who is now at Yale University, and Jeffrey Lee. And then the other members are also, there's Jenny Zhang, and I think Chris Luttrell is there, Lucy Gia, Kevin Liu, AJ Beno is also part of our team. Yes, somebody's on a bus coming home. That's how they were really into coming here. And then, did I forget anybody? I got Chris, AJ Beno, and Vinay Parakala, who I'm not sure where he is. I think he's in California. But they were very, very excited. So we go to the competition, and needless to say, there were 3 days of competing. And the thing that amazes me about them is that they gave up their nights. We would do Wednesday nights pretty much for 4 months in a row, and this is for 2 years. And then they gave up their senior week to be with their teacher, which is very odd in itself, but I felt very grateful. And then they proceeded to win one of the 3 competitions, we were called onto stage, and then we also, hi Kevin, and we also were competing against the #1 STEM school in the country, which is in San Jose, California. There were 8,000 students competing, and of those 8,000, they won the national championship. So you have... So they taught me many things. One of the things they did teach me was what real teamwork is, and it's really knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each of us, including their teacher, and really capitalizing on that. They won because they were a true team. When we were at regionals, all the coaches always say to me, what are you doing that's making them win so much? And I really said, they get together, they give up their time, and they work together. And they have fabulous teachers here at Methacton High School. That, you know, they really were trained well. They know what to do. Their presentations were on mark. We actually had uniforms this year. So, I mean, they just went over and beyond. But they are your, I think, first national champions in anything. And they are in the test of engineering and math and science. So congratulations, team.
At this time, I'd like President Nascimento please come forward to read proclamations from the board to our students.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. So it's my great pleasure to recognize these ladies and gentlemen. We have 2 proclamations for the 2 students, or former students, 2 alumni that are here tonight. And the proclamation of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors. Whereas many Methacton School District students individually and collectively perform distinguished service to their school and/or community in many ways, and whereas the reputation and image of the Methacton School District is built and enhanced by the performance of its faculty and students, and whereas the accomplishments of individual students in academic, artistic, athletic, leadership, literary, and musical endeavors brings positive community interest in school programs, and whereas the future of any community rests in the hands of its responsible youth. And whereas Kevin Bijou and Jeffrey Lee have brought considerable recognition to their school and community as members of the national champion Methacton High School Tests of Engineering Aptitude, Mathematics, and Science team, a rare and significant accomplishment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors go on record on this, the 24th day of November, 2015, honoring the spirit of this exemplary performance, and it's signed by myself as the President of the Methacton School Board of Directors. Gentlemen, congratulations. You both together?
You want trophies?
Oh, the trophies,
We don't have trophies, yeah, why not?
Grab the trophies real quick.
In my suitcase.
Yeah. So we'll get rid of the recognition. Next on the agenda, I'd like to ask President Nascimento to come forward and recognize the outgoing board members this evening. Mr. Nascimento?
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Look at the dedication. They're going to stick around for this. I hope you were recording that. This evening is the last Board of School Directors meeting for the current board, and so it gives me a great pleasure to take a few moments to recognize our outgoing board members. Some of the board members were elected to office, some of them were appointed when vacancies occurred, but all of them have served the district and the board with distinction and with exemplary service. The list of accomplishments that these 5 board members have been a part of is significant, between the Fields project, the lights that we'll take care of tonight, the budget this year with no tax increase, and many other things that the board has been a part of. So it gives me great pleasure to recognize these board members as they leave service of the board. We thank them, and I'll ask each one to come up individually and present them with a token of our appreciation. First, with thanks for dedicated service from December 6, 2011 to December 1st, 2015, Kathleen Barone. We'll stay up here, we'll get a picture of everybody. December 2011 to December 2015, Maria Shackelford. Thank you. From June 24th, 2014 to December 1st, 2015, Peter McFarland. From June 9th, 2014 to December 1st, 2015, Gregory Pelicano. And finally, from December 6th, 2011 to December 1st, 2015, Kim Woodring. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
Oh, you want us to hold them up?
Oh, my God. Make sure that I'm far enough away.
Thank you.
If board members could please return to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe, and thanks and congratulations to everyone who was recognized. Now we'll move on to, excuse me, item number 6, reports. Starting with Finance Committee, Mr. Pelicano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, we had several items on the agenda. The Finance Committee took place on the 17th of November. All members were present. There's one thing I'd like to just mention in the minutes that I picked up and have a chance to update it, but I think under section 3D, the last paragraph there, that might be better inserted in kind of like an other section, because I don't think it was necessarily related to the feasibility study, but I just want to mention that if you want to change that going forward. Several topics that were discussed. The first is the monthly financial reports, which we typically go over. We look at the trends and spend across the schools and departments and what have you. We reviewed those as well as the list of bills and addressed any questions that came along with that. Next topic was a vending agreement with RDS. Mr. Whiteleather reviewed that with Mr. Gentile, who was also present, regarding this agreement and some new sets of vending machines that would be coming forth, allowing us to get some additional commissions on vending sales. I just want to make sure it's clarified that these vending machines are, for the most part, related to the teachers' lounges areas, right? And I think there's 2 that might be near the student areas, but we're very careful to keep them, I guess, away for purposes of reimbursement, that sort of thing. There was a discussion on the Act 1 resolution and what that entailed. There was several topics that were kind of related to that. Mr. Whiteleather walked the board through the couple different scenarios of what it would mean if you took, if you need to take the exceptions or not take the exceptions and what have you, the different timing around that, the amounts associated with the index and the exceptions and what have you. So there was some discussion around that, as well as, what the board could or could not do as far as approving or changing those particular decisions. And then lastly, there was a district-wide feasibility study update, which Mr. Whiteleather also gave an update on. There was some discussion around this particular topic regarding the hiring of a vendor to help us out with that. I think through the discussion we heard, Dr. Zerbe mentioned that we thought it would probably be in the best interest to, in order to get this done and get it done in a reasonable amount of time, that it would be best to have a comprehensive review done by someone outside. But then there was some also discussion, which I think was a good point, was brought up regarding keeping it fresh and updating it periodically. So that's something we'll need to continue to do. And then the last thing on the other section, which is the last paragraph on 3D, Dr. Zerbe also reviewed a proposal regarding the Mets company to provide certain bus services for a few routes to cover some driver shortages around that. He mentioned the different costs associated with that. Aside from that, there were several different questions around comments around courtesy of the board, and we adjourned at 8:25 p.m.
Thank you. Property Committee, Mr. Phillips.
No reporting at the present moment. I think we'll get to the real thing.
Got it. Mr. Roth, Human Resources.
The Human Resources Committee meeting was canceled, so there is no report. Thank you.
Okay. Education Committee, Ms. Hackett.
The Education Committee met on November 12th. It was a rescheduled meeting, and we had a few items to discuss. We had results from the 2015 testing from the district and learned a lot about what is happening as far as the Keystones and the SPP for the district. We also discussed at length the undersubscribed courses in the high school and received course proposals for several new courses. You'll see all of that is included in the report. And in addition, we received an updated enrollment report as of November 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications and community relations. There will be a communication that goes out around the judge's ruling and the lights. We'll cover that some more during Dr. Zerbe's report. And I think you'll also cover some other things that we've communicated recently around the lockdown that I thought the district did a good job with, but I'll wait until your report for that. Policy Committee, Ms. Woodring.
Thank you. The Policy Committee did not meet as scheduled. There were some preparation that went into the meeting. However, there are probably about 6 or 7 matters of unfinished business that are documented and that Donna should have whenever the meetings resume. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Intermediate Unit, Ms. Hackett.
Yes, the intermediate unit received its normal reports. Its focus was on the issues related to the Pennsylvania state budget, which of course is a continuing concern. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. North Monco Technical Career Center, Mr. Phillips and Ms. Woodring.
Thank you. We met on November 16th, and among other matters of normal business, we had a presentation from the auditors for the 14-15 audit. During the voting, we accepted those results. We approved the comprehensive plan that I was involved in back in May. We accepted a proposal for $6,400 for Gottschall to develop a roof repair design specifications. And their annual holiday meal, holiday dinner, is scheduled for the 21st of December. Everybody should have gotten an invitation. It's a very nice event, and hopefully you'll be able to attend that. And their reorganization meeting will follow that dinner. That's all I have.
Thank you. Student Board Representatives.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, Methacton Marching Band traveled to Hershey for a state competition. After all the hard work that they had, they placed 9th in their division, so congrats to them. Last Friday was busy for Methacton. First, we had the second annual Powder Puff football game between junior and senior girls. We got the opportunity, we actually played on the new stadium field, which is really neat for us, and unfortunately the seniors lost, but that's okay. Later that evening, Arcola hosted the Celebration of the Arts, and community members went out to support the music and art departments. And also, looking forward, the winter concerts for the school district are starting next week, so if you want to go to them, you can go online, and all the times and dates are there. So, thank you.
So, in sports, Methacton students continue to shine. Jeff Kirschenbaum of the boys cross-country team recently capped off his high school career by winning the Pac-10 championship by more than 30 seconds. He then went on to receive 6th place at the District 1 race and finally 9th place at states. Equally impressive was the girls' field hockey team as they made it to the first round of the state championships for the first time since 2007. Furthermore, after winning the Pac-10 championship, the boys' golf team sent Daniel Rieger and Kyle Vance to districts, the PIAA Eastern Regional, and eventually to states, where both finished tied for 21st place. Also, the girls' tennis team qualified for the state championships after finishing 4th place in District 1. Mihaela Kodjanu, the individual District 1 champion, and the team went on to the first round of the state championship. Some other achievements by the students at Methacton include Minithon recently raising $5,569 from the Wizards event, in which they invited families for a fun night with the Harlem Wizards basketball team, the MHS Theater Company putting together the successful play The Tempest, and the advancement of juniors Emily Cheng and Gerald Liu to the prestigious Siemens competition. Congrats to all of our students.
Thank you very much. I heard the Wizards event was a great event. I heard you didn't do so well, Dr. Zerbe.
Well, we didn't win, but I was 1 for 2 with a three-pointer. So
that's it.
That's all I wanted. All I wanted to do was get there and score, not get hurt.
Communications, Ms. Lynch.
2 items of note. The district annually invites all of our students to submit holiday drawings that will be featured on the district's holiday slideshow that will go out on the website and go to the superintendent's colleagues, as well as to all the families in our district. So I encourage all of our students to participate by sending in artwork to me, and we'll digitize those and make that part of that slideshow, which is now an annual tradition. Also, the Community Education Program Guide for the winter and spring is currently being printed at the printer and will be mailed out, and we look forward to inviting all of our seniors to participate in a very special event wherein they will have the opportunity to have dinner and a show. They'll attend the spring musical, which is going to be Into the Woods. It's a little information for you, which is very exciting. And then they'll have dinner in our cafeteria served by members of the cast and crew. So thank you very much.
Superintendent, Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have several items. I want to just bring you up to date on transportation. As you mentioned before, Mr. President, about the lockout event that occurred. Also, I want to add to the marching band competition, give an update to the public on strategic planning, talk about a limerick drill that we recently had, and then finally give you some really good news on field lighting. So first of all, let's talk about transportation for a second. This evening, I'm recommending that the board authorize the administration to contract with Met's Busing Transportation for 4 buses and drivers to address the driver shortage existing in the district, which has led to a significant increase in the late buses this school year. While bus lateness can be a result of many factors, driver shortage has and is the reason for 44 late buses this school year. A late bus is defined as a bus that is 15 minutes or greater late on completing its planned route. In many instances, late buses have been over 45 minutes late. While it is not uncommon for buses to be late from time to time, the significant and perpetual nature of lateness this year has led to many meetings with First Student to determine strategies that we can work together on to address the issue. We even held a meeting recently with the First Student Transportation team and our building principals to encourage better coordination, communication, and ways to address issues stemming from the driver shortage. Nonetheless, First Student, while taking some measures to address our concerns, has fallen short of our expectations due to being down 17 drivers. And now this driver shortage includes 10 on-call drivers, which are typically used to address general driver absences that happen in any workplace, and other extra runs. And then there are the 7 drivers that were short of our current 95 bus runs. First student will be the first to tell you that the driver shortages are not unique to Methacton. However, recently I've communicated out to the Methacton families and told them that I will address the issues of lateness and communications. The recommendation to engage MET's transportation for the 4 buses and drivers is just one part of how we plan to address our issues. This recommendation does not cost the district any additional money than that already allocated to providing the 95 bus runs. It is hopeful that this effort, combined with efforts of First Student, like recruiting and training of new drivers, can address our transportation needs for the remainder of the year and reduce, if not eliminate, the perpetual lateness. I'm equally hopeful that this effort will allow First Student more time to establish a complement of drivers that will help the district well into the future. We are putting into place procedures to improve our communications and not only internally but with our parents as well. And lastly, it is important to know that I must address the needs of our students and parents first. As such, I also seek to work with First Student to develop our relationship further in the most positive and appropriate manner possible. That ends my report on transportation. The next, I'd like to talk about the lockout that recently occurred. So please be advised that on the morning of November 18th, 2015, the high school administration was informed of a matter that required the immediate implementation of a precautionary lockout procedure at the high school. In an abundance of caution and in consultation with law enforcement, the high school proceeded with the lockout procedure and issued a notice informing the parents of the lockout. Once the matter was resolved by law enforcement and then communicated to the district, a subsequent communication to parents followed. I want to thank our staff and our students and the high school administration for their handling and cooperation in the matter. I also want to thank the Pennsylvania State Police and the Lower Providence Township Police Department and our school resource officers for their support and cooperation. It is unfortunate that these matters must come before us, but these procedures are in place to, above all else, ensure the safety of our students. Now, to add to the student board representatives' comments about the marching band competition, I just want to bring to your attention that while the marching band, the high school marching band traveled to Hershey on November 14th to compete in the annual Cavalcade of Bands Championships, we did come in 5th place out of 23 bands in the American class with a score of 91.2. This is a significant accomplishment, and it's a testament to the hard work of our students, to their parents, and our marching band staff and volunteers, all under the direction of first-year marching band director, Mr. Jeff McCoach. Students, we are proud of your accomplishments. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to make a statement or two about strategic planning. I want the public and the board to be advised that a call for participation in the strategic planning process for the district saw over 90 people apply. The strategic planning process being facilitated by Joanne Parati of Bucks County Intermediate Unit includes 5 subcommittees of which staff, community members, and students will serve to help define the direction of the district over the next 6 years. Communications were sent out today or will be sent out later today to all applicants, informing them either that they have been selected for a subcommittee or will be needed as part of future focus groups or other needs such as survey participants. In addition to this, we will be seeking at least one representative from each of the township's supervisor ranks and as members of the committees, as well as asking our school board directors to choose subcommittees to participate on. This process will commence with the first meeting scheduled for December 9th, 2015, and will follow a process that results in a presentation of a plan by April 30th, 2016. Additional information about this process and committee membership will be posted on the district website following the Thanksgiving holiday. The next item, I want to bring your attention to an event that occurs every 2 years for the Methacton School District. I can report that on Tuesday, November 17th, our district participated in the biannual Limerick Generation Station drill. This drill is required by FEMA and PEMA since school buildings are within the 10-mile radius of the Limerick Generating Station. This district-wide drill simulates a live event and tests our response and safety plans. This year, Skyview, Arcola, and Farina Administration Building were audited by FEMA and PEMA. I am pleased to report that there are no deficiencies to the report. The next time we have to conduct this drill will be November of 2017. And lastly, I would like to share with the board this evening and the public a matter on field lighting. It is with great excitement that I inform the board and public that today, in the Court of Common Pleas, before the Honorable Judge Thomas Del Ricci, that the settlement agreement reached by the parties of the school district, the neighbors, and Worcester Township was approved. I think that deserves it.
Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause, correct. But thank you. Accordingly, the matter is now successfully concluded and shall therefore afford the district, as outlined in the settlement agreement, to install athletic field lighting on both the newly renovated auxiliary sports field as well as the newly renovated stadium sports field on the Methacton High School campus. This order hereby ends decades of interest in this matter and ends the litigation associated. It also allows the district to take the next steps in authorizing the administration to purchase and construct sports field lighting on these two fields following the submission of all drawings, remaining construction approvals, and permits. This is a significant conclusion, a result, an accomplishment of great magnitude. Some say it dates back nearly 20 years. I must commend the Board of School Directors for their perseverance during this most challenging multi-year matter. Together, we accomplished a task that many never believed was possible, and that many doubted would ever become reality, given its history. Given the hurdles, the appeals, the meetings, and all the time invested in this process, I can tell you that seeing our students on the turf field is truly an amazing sight. And now knowing that we will be seeing the same under lights is just truly amazing. While the litigation is now behind us, please know that if approved this evening to proceed with lighting, I will also be seeking opportunities to mend the district's relationship with our neighbors and the township going forward. I will first do this by working to ensure that the stipulations in the settlement agreement and any pertaining to ordinances are properly communicated and followed by the district. And finally, on behalf of the families, the athletes, the band members, the students of the past, current students, and future students, I present the Board of School Directors with two agenda items this evening that will allow us to start the construction of lights in motion for two turf fields with the expectation of completion by the end of March 2016. And prior to ending my report, as superintendent of Methacton Schools, I wish our families a happy Thanksgiving with the hope that you can relax and spend quality time with your families and friends. I encourage you to take a moment during the holiday to recognize all that you can be thankful for and to share your appreciation with others. Thank you and have a great holiday season. That ends my report.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. Would certainly like to extend the board's appreciation to you, Principal Landis, Assistant Principal Spiewak, Ms. Lynch, and the entire administration for all the hard work that you guys have put into the project, the fields, and going forward with the lights. That's certainly recognized and appreciated. And Mr. Bartle, certainly want to thank your firm, particularly you and Eric Fry, for the hard work that you guys have done to get us to this point in legal matters. So we say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we'll move on to item number 7, public comment on board action items. Is there any public comment on board action items?
Karen Bickelman, Lower Providence. I'm speaking to the reports number 6, Finance Committee meeting. I want to address the Finance Committee meeting minutes that took place on Tuesday, November 17th. The minutes actually do not reflect my opinion of the outsourcing of 4 buses to METS. I'm still bothered by this. I understand the lateness of the buses, and this is in the interim until we have drivers on board to fill the shortage. I don't agree with you outsourcing these 4 buses till the end of this school year, because there are drivers. There's, I believe, 4 drivers started this week, 3 or 4 drivers started this week. As I told you at the Finance Committee meeting, there were another 12 drivers or so in training that would take place, training 2 to 3 weeks, and we're going to have 12 more drivers. So I can understand you outsourcing the 4 buses temporarily, but I do not agree with you doing it till the end of the school year, because we have drivers that depend on the income from those routes. They should have the opportunity to be listed and up for bid, be it for more hours, less hours, or a better bus run. That wasn't given to the drivers that are down there for the opportunity to bid on another run before you selected these runs and gave them to METS. And I agree that temporarily they can be done until the drivers are on board, but not until June of 2016. I just think that is ridiculous. Okay? That's just my opinion, and I think it should be revisited. And one other thing I want to say about the minutes. I have a question on who takes the minutes at the committee meetings.
Mr. Whiteleather takes them for the Finance Committee.
Okay, Mr. Whiteleather, there's a pet peeve on the minutes. My name is spelled incorrectly, as it has been when I was a Methacton employee. Just a pet peeve. I wanted to point out that my name is spelled incorrectly on the minutes, and then my husband's name is spelled incorrectly but different than my name. Okay? And the other thing I want to mention, on the statement my husband made that's documented here in the minutes, the Peasers cost for 2016 and 2016, I think you meant to say it should be 2016, 2017. So proofreading might help. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on board action items. Mr. Bickelman?
Yeah, I have a comment to make on the...
Can you state your name and residence for the record?
Joe Bickelman, Bickleman, Audubon, PA. I have a comment to make on the outsourcing of the METS busing. I just did some estimates on this, and this could come to about $100,000 a year. And I was wondering if we got 3 to 5 proposals from other vendors to get the best price so that we don't have to spend $100,000. So, because we went out and got quotes for a second enrollment study, and we went through all that RFP process, so this is a $100,000 item, and I think we should have shopped around for maybe Crafts or STA or Gross or some other contractor to see what is the best price that we could get. So I wonder if that business practice took place. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
You want to go first? It's about buses if you want to. Hi, Katie Donnelly, Lower Providence. Quick question regarding the buses. My big concern is safety. My son's on one of these buses. Surprised it was his morning bus. He's on a different afternoon bus. His morning bus has never been late for school. His afternoon bus has actually come home at least 3 times. And I've gotten messages, communication's been great, but 15 to 30 minutes late, so that's not the bus. But anyway, questions about safety. We've gone with First Student, so this is now a second company. You know, is it as good? Is the communication going to be the same? Do they have radios like the First Student buses? Are there cameras for security and bowling and things like that? Is it the same? And because I don't think my son should be any different than anybody else and have the same safety concerns. Thank you.
Good evening. John Andrews, Lower Providence. With regard to the proposal with Metz, I don't agree with hiring them. Yes, there's a bus driver shortage that affects education and perhaps safety and some other issues. Especially, I don't agree with hiring them in the middle of November. The problem appears to be in Methacton administration. Back in March, there was a little ad in the newspaper, transportation manager. And among the responsibilities were 12-month position, management and oversight of all contractors. So in August, and school started this year in August, did Methacton know there was a first student weakness? Now it's November 24th, and we want to hire Metz, 4 buses through June. Per the Finance Committee discussion last week, first student will have plenty of drivers in a few weeks, as Mrs. Bickelman described to you. Also, it was mentioned that the first student agreement allows for a $1,000 a day penalty. If we had put that on the bus company in September, I would bet big money that we wouldn't have a problem still in November. So, where is the issue of non-performance? Maybe it's not with first student. Did we impose penalties in August, September, October, or yet this month? This contract with Metz is not the answer. Regarding the lights change order, I'm concerned that heavy equipment used to put in the concrete bases for the lights will damage either the new turf and or the renovated track and perhaps other areas. Although it does seem to me that if the ground is frozen enough in February, maybe we won't have any damage. Also, the change order is for 182 days, ending on March 5th of 2015. I thought time always went forward as a physicist. Anyone read this detail? And then a couple items regarding the list of bills. There's one outfit called Commonwealth Connections that has a September tuition bill of $39,000 odd. And I think this regards autistic students. I have no knowledge as to what is done there, but I'm wondering, are those students housed in district buildings or elsewhere? And then there's another outfit called Education Alternatives, September Behavior Consulting for $109,081. The same question. So I think that the public would like some clarification on those bills. Thank you.
You all right?
Yeah. Didn't see the step.
John, you all right?
Fine.
Okay. Any additional public comment on board action items? Candy.
Ron Evans, Worcester Township. I just want to personally thank the board for finally approving the lights. I have a short message here. I'm not going to read all the information that I collected, or we'll be here till tomorrow morning. I did keep the important ones here. I'm not going to read it all. I'm sure you've all heard it many times, but 22 years ago, I brought it up about the school board lights and for football and whatever else. Finally, after 22 years, it's been approved, and I want to thank you all for that. What I intended to do was tear up these papers and throw them on the floor but I don't think I better do that because I might have to bend over and pick them up, and at my age, I won't be able to do that. But thank you, and I'll be at the first game or in the grave, one or the other.
We'll assume at the first game. Candy?
Candy Oliver, Eagleville. I would like to thank Mr. Evans for being very persistent for the last 22 years to get lights on the field, and that he's able to sit here and know that we're going to finally get lights after 20, 30 years. My comment is on the Mets busing service, since I was here when he decided to outsource the buses. My first question is, why is the school district getting these buses? Why isn't First Student doing it? This is their responsibility. And also, why isn't the transportation director here to present this? Isn't this part of his job? I mean, if we have drivers in the pipeline, why do we need a contract until the end of the school year? I mean, if this is temporary. Now, I know timing is an issue with the buses. I live on Eagleville Road. I watch a lot of buses enter the school late in the morning because the traffic backing up. And the traffic light was to solve that problem. It's made it worse. And that's an issue in the morning. Afternoon, the traffic in Lower Providence and Worcester has increased over the years drastically. It's horrible. And I don't think the buses have redid their times and schedules, because I know my children, the time they got their bus never changed for years. And the buses were always late picking them up, so they never adjusted the pickup and the drop-off. Maybe that's a thought. But I think before the school district got out of the transportation business and handed it off to First Student, this is First Student's responsibility to bring in help if they need it. I don't see where it's ours. You took that away from the school district. So if we have a couple bus drivers now that are already here, bus drivers should be allowed to bid. If they're a union, and if I understand this right, the bidding on the job goes in-house first. The employees get the choice to bid on these jobs. Then if they can't get any employees, then they go outside. Why are the employees being bypassed? I don't think that's fair. A lot of them are longtime residents in the school district. They have been loyal to the school district. They've had a lot taken away from them. And I think they should have the option of picking up the extra runs before you bring in a bus service that's going to cost taxpayers more money. Even if it's a couple $100 here or there, the money should go in to the employees' pockets, not into a bus service that doesn't have cameras, doesn't have radios, and the safety of our children has always been number one in this school district when it came to the buses. And it seems that is starting to be forgotten, and that's a very bad thing to happen when the safety of our children isn't put before everything else.
Thank you, Candy. Additional public comment on board action items?
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. Just want to reiterate a comment I made at the Finance Committee meeting, and it's regarding item 9F, the district-wide facilities assessment, which I understand is basically developing the district's long-term capital plan. I worked in finance for over 20 years, and these types of plans are always done in-house. There's no reason why the district's facilities director, working with the CFO, with input from the superintendent and the building principals, cannot develop a capital plan. I mean, people working in the district should know what the capital needs are, should be able to get estimates, determine what those needs are as well. Dr. Zerber, you said it might take 3 to 5 years. There's no way. If you have somebody in that role, they should be able to develop that capital plan. So I asked the board to save the $27,500 and direct the administration to do this in-house. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on board action items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 8, board meeting minutes. I will ask for a motion, excuse me, to approve the board meeting minutes of the special board meeting held on October 12th and the regular board meeting held on October... Actually, let me take these separately. I ask for a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the special board meeting held on October 12th, 2015. Ms. Woodring, is there a second? Mr. Pellicano, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Now I'll ask for a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 27th, 2015. Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Ms. Shackelford, any discussion? I'm going to abstain because I was absent from that meeting. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes majority with 7-0 with 2 abstentions. Moving on to fiscal items, Mr. Whiteleather.
Thank you. A couple items on for this evening. The first item is the monthly list of bills as reviewed by Finance Committee on for your approval this evening. Our monthly treasurer's report as well reviewed by Finance on for your approval this evening. Health Advocate Service. This is our employee assistance program offered to our staff. The fee as set forth on the agenda item reflects a fee of $1.20 per employee per month. This is the same rate that was in effect for the prior year. There's no increase reflected in that amount. Item D, you have 3 change orders on for your approval this evening. Those change orders reflect various aspects of the athletic field project. The first item is inclusive of installation of a water line service to our auxiliary and softball field to supply water service out to those 2 locations. The second change order is, as Dr. Zerbe spoke about earlier this evening, relative to the installation of the lights on the football stadium field as well as the auxiliary field in the amount as indicated on the agenda item. And lastly, item 3 reflects the purchase of the physical equipment, the light poles, lights, standards, etc. Again, at the price as reflected on the agenda item here this evening. Moving forward, I have on for your approval this evening as well, authorization for approval to have a vending agreement with RDS. As indicated, this contract reflects no cost to the school district and provides an additional incentive of a 25% monthly revenue commission back to the school district on all sales. That would be pending our solicitor review of the contract. Moving forward, our district-wide feasibility assessment. Administration, in conjunction with Property Committee as well as Finance Committee, spent the last 2 months at various stages of review, analysis, recommendation, finalization of vendors, working our way to bringing a recommendation to Finance and Property Committee, as well as here to the school board this evening. The vendor, as listed here, represents the firm as reviewed by Property Committee to address the needs of what we're looking for at the least cost to the district for the service to be provided. And lastly, the METS busing service agreement reflects 4 72-passenger buses for the remainder of the 15-16 year at a daily rate of $231 per vehicle per day. This rate of $231 actually represents a minor decrease over the current rate we're charged by First Student for the same size vehicle. First Student charges the district currently $231.75 per day per vehicle. So it reflects a very minor but notable decrease relative to the comparison between the two. Again, this agreement would be pending the solicitor review, and that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteleather. Before I ask for a motion, are there any items that anyone wants to take individually? Mr. Pillock.
Over here.
Mr. Roth?
G, the busing service.
Yeah. Okay. Any additional?
I'd take D, the info.
Okay. Okay. Assuming that's it, I will ask for, excuse me, ask for a motion to approve fiscal items as presented, A, B, C, E, and F. Is there a motion? Mr. Phillips, is there a second? Mr. Roth, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Do you have discussion? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess with respect to item F, the district-wide facilities assessment, I mean, I think, Dr. Zerbe, we talked about this quite a bit, I guess, during the Finance Committee meeting. I mean, you feel pretty confident that we, in order to get this comprehensively done 100% right, get it through, and get it done soon, this is the way to go. And then we can then refresh it going forward with our own team, correct?
And that is correct. I mean, there's a couple other points here. While the question at the Finance Committee meeting was, can this be done in-house? And the answer is, we have a capable director of facility. We certainly have a capable staff that support him in the matter. And I did say 3 to 5 years, and maybe it won't take that long. But the issue for us is this, is that we will either be spending our time doing the study or doing what we would normally, the work that we normally do on a regular basis. So whether we spend the $27.5 for an outside company to do the work, we're likely going to be spending someone's time or some money and time to address that same matter. But maybe more importantly to this is not the matter of money and time, but actually the third-party, unbiased, no skin in the game review of an assessment of this process. So it does, the opinion isn't jaded by an employee that looks at things in one way versus an outside opinion. And that really pays some dividends for us looking at things objectively. So when we look at this, I think this was money well spent, and it is the lowest price that we've received from the competitive process. And yes, I recommend that we approve this evening.
Any other discussion on those items as presented? Go ahead.
Do we have a contract for that yet, or are we going to develop that contract?
That is in development.
Okay, so will that be pending solicitor review?
Yes, we should tack that on to the back of this agenda item. So
Thank
pending
you.
solicitor review. Thank you.
Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve items.
I have a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I just want to ask quickly, what is the difference between this facility assessment and the capital plans and facility assessments we've done in the past that we require going outside?
I can say that as superintendent of schools, I have not done a facilities assessment other than the presentation that I presented as a new superintendent to the Methacton School District on or about January of 2014 when I presented to the board as part of the budgetary process. So I don't know historically what Methacton School District has done in the past. I can tell you that this is something that we're proposing. It has been vetted through the property committee. It's been a matter of discussion on many fronts, including school consolidation. There's been a consideration in the matter of budgeting, and this has come up just about in every meeting, and that's why we've done our due diligence to go through this process to present you a firm that will do an assessment of all our facilities. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't have the historic knowledge that you may have.
Well, we used to do that. We used to do 5-year capital plans, and that's why I'm trying to figure out what's the difference. Now we have to go outside.
Okay, so the plan itself, in order to do, this study will allow us to establish the plan. If you recall back in January of 2014, I presented as part of the budgetary process a plan based on the information that we had at the time, and that was based on the initial assessment that was provided by our then director of facilities. That, in combination with discussions from our principals, provided a list of items such as roofs and other major projects that we needed to consider and that we knew of at that moment in time. by no means was it a thorough and complete assessment. But in the 3 to 4 short months that I was on the board or in the district, and having to bring a presentation for the budget and a capital plan included in that, that's the best we had available at the time. And so this plan will simply, where's that noise coming from?
Someone's phone's on.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing beeping, so I'm okay. So.
Hey, your time's up.
That's fine. But yeah, seriously though, in all seriousness, this is a baseline to allow us to then use this information to carry forward capital plans on an annual basis to help address any matters, whether it might be with school consolidation and/or it might be with budgeting and any other matter that requires us to look at long-term projections. So I believe that this is an important matter that will set the baseline for us going forward. So it is an information find.
What we basically had was we had 20 years of a facilities director that was here. And we had a new facilities director that started, Mark Fretz. It was fair to say that Mark needed fresh eyes. He needed to have the whole district-wide evaluated. The different bids that we had ranged from 350 to 500 hours of man-hours to do this study. One of the, other than the third party, if we had Mark Fretz or any staff, that would tie up staff for 500 hours, which is about 25% of their work year if there's a 2,000-hour work year. So you're going to spend more than that by pulling Mark away from doing his duties as a facilities director or any staff. This also gave Mark the opportunity, along with the administration, to construct this study in a way that they can point out different areas, scheduling of needs within the district. As far as our capital improvements, this will also lay out what should be done in a particular order and from a third party, which is important because the notes that Mark has from the previous director, they might not see everything that was there. And we just want to double check, and we want to have that stopgap where Mark has a full understanding of what's going on in the district in a timely manner, so he can make his decisions and he can also track them. So the $27,500 is relatively cheap based on we're not wasting our man hours doing our own study in-house, and they can actually continue doing work in the district that they need to get done. And the example is the field project. You may know we've tried to do a lot of things in-house on scheduling, and that was very difficult for our staff to handle. So it's better off getting a group in here 2-3 weeks, get a complete evaluation, have them structured for Mark Fretz to follow, and have a baseline. So that's why we went where we did.
Okay. I just have one quick question. I think it's important that the district actually invest this money in our facilities. I can never remember seeing a comprehensive report on our facilities, and given the volume of information that needs to be done, I feel comfortable in hiring a third party to do this rather than putting the burden of this on our staff and with Mark. I think I've never seen one done before in this district, and I would like to see it done. Thanks.
Additional comments or questions? Okay. We have a motion for ABC. Do you have a question, or?
Actually, we need to ask for an amendment to it to include pending solicitor review.
So you good with that amendment? Good. Second? Okay. So we have a motion for A, B, C, E, F with the amendment that it's pending solicitor review. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to item 9D, change orders. So I'll ask for a motion to approve item D as presented, which is the change orders for the field lighting project. Is there a motion? Ms. Woodring, is there a second? Mr. Phillips, any discussion? Mr. McFarland?
Just a clarification on the on number 1, the water. I just wanted to get a little better idea of why that was not part of the original contract. And so go ahead on that. I'll come back.
The change order, number 1, they approved the change order for the water line, the trenching and the installation of a water line to the auxiliary and softball fields. In the matter of construction, we had come across the fact that our general contractor did not supply the necessary bid for this particular work to be done inside the agreement, which in the bid specifications requested. However, the documents, meaning the drawings associated with the bid documents, was this water line was absent on the drawings. So after much discussion and much review by not only our field architect but our civil engineer as well as the Fidavia, our construction management firm, it was decided that in order to keep the project on schedule, the line was originally intended as per the initial bid specifications, but while it was absent on the drawings, it was void of the general contractor bidding on that. We then asked the general contractor to provide a price, and then we also asked any other primes to provide a price on the matter so that we could expedite the construction in order to prevent the project from being delayed any further. And this is a resulting change order from that.
Okay, thank you. Second question regarding both 2 and 3. The dollars that are involved with this will be taken from the current capital reserve but replaced in terms of the field project funding as it's available. Is that correct?
Would you just mind repeating that, please? I'm sorry.
The dollars being used to purchase the materials and the labor over the next 4 months are being taken from the current capital reserve, and then those dollars would be eventually replaced by funds from the field project.
The process for the use of funds for the construction of the field project goes in this order. First of all, we had an Emmaus bond borrowing of approximately $5.5 million. That amount of money is being used first. So until the point where we use up all that money, and if we do as part of this process, the next step would be to use any on-hand contributions that we've received from the capital campaign. And once those are used, then we will use the construction fund in order to continue making the necessary payments and completing this project, with the intent that any additional funds that would come back to us through the capital campaign would then offset those dollars that were spent out of the construction fund.
Okay, thank you. And just finally, just for clarification, it's stated here, but the materials were purchased not through a bidding process, but rather through a previous bid to state contract that allows the purchase of that from the low bidder on the state. Is that accurate?
This is off of a state contract. So there's a bidding process that occurs by a third-party administrator. They do this for school districts and other municipality, other government agencies across the Commonwealth.
Mr. Pellicano.
Just to clarify on, I guess, the first question regarding the water line and the omission there. So had this been included on the drawing, would the original estimate then have been this additional amount over and above, so we're not paying extra, or are we paying extra because of this omission? And if so, are we going to go back after whoever's fault that was?
So the original bid from the general contractor did not include dollars associated with this part of the construction. So no, no matter what, it would have been additional because it wasn't bid on because it did not, that the item was not included as an item on the drawing, only in the actual bid documents themselves. So we would have, our overall cost would have increased no matter what. But your question is, would it have increased to the same amount? I can't tell you that because I don't have bid dollars associated with that price or that project prior to getting it when we were in the middle of construction.
So we, in our holdback that we had talked about previously, that could just be another item that's thrown in, that whatever that delta is, right?
Yeah, this, along with several other items in the construction projects, are being considered as items for further discussion with all of our contractors going forward to ensure that, we are protecting the district in all these matters.
And we're getting, to follow up on that, we're getting advice from Fidavia on the best way to approach that.
That is correct.
And I guess the last question was related to what Mr. Andrew brought up. I circled it, 3/5/15 date, that is incorrect on the change order? That substantial completion date? That should that be 16?
3/5. Supposed to be 3/5 or 3/5?
It says 3/5/15, should, I think.
3/5/15.
So-
Before it's being completed.
Should be 3/5.
Well, unless-
16.
Unless we're going to fly around the earth a
Right?
couple times.
All right, yeah, so I think that has to be amended then, right? Okay.
We'll make that the correction, so
So let's do that, approve this as amended.
as amended, yes.
Ms. Woodring.
Yeah, just, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, we're very,
Go ahead.
Kathleen and I have the same questions. Okay, let her go.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify the answer that you gave to Peter. We only approved $4 million of that $5.5 million bond, and I want to make sure that that's still...
That is correct. The board authorized us to fully expend at the end of the 5-year period, the $4 million. The additional 1.5 part of the Emmaus bond is being used to finance the construction, and then will be replenished into the construction fund following the receipt of contributions back approximately 4 years from now.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify on item number 1 that this, as I read the change order, this was not included in the original specs, drawings, whatever. So now that we're going in to lay this water line, we're not going to be ripping up anything of any significance that we already put down, are we?
Yeah, in order to clarify this change order, this is a change order after the fact. So we explained that to the property committee as a part of our discussion. It had to be done nearly within a few-day period because we needed to ensure that the fields were going to be constructed on time as well as laying the asphalt. So if we would not have done that, we would have laid all that work and then it had to tear it back up or trench under it, which could have cost us additional money.
Anything else down here? Anything else? Okay. So, Ms. Woodring and Mr. Phillips, you're okay with amending the motion in the second to correct the date? Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve the change orders as presented with the date correction. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Evans? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Change orders are approved. We will have lights. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item G, Metz Busing Service. Can I have a motion to authorize the administration to contract with Metz Busing Service to provide 4 72-passenger buses and drivers for the remainder of the 2015-16 school year at a cost of $231 per day per vehicle, pending solicitor review of contract? Is there a motion? If there's no motion, this will die. Going once?
Can I make a statement?
Yep, please.
So let me just give you some additional information based on what has been communicated by members of the public here this evening. Now, first of all, it must be understood that safety is our utmost priority here. We've spent a significant amount of time working with First Student in order to address this particular issue. The driver shortage is not something that we ultimately said, hey, we're going to, if you can't deal with it, we're going to go ahead and outsource. You need to understand that a contract with First Student has certain stipulations in it, and we can, enact those stipulations at any moment in time. However, it's my opinion to try to work with the vendor. We have a long-term contract with them. My goal is to work with the vendor in order to try to address the matter appropriately and in an amicable manner. We've held several meetings, many meetings. We tried to resolve the matter in a way that allows us to have First Student provide the intended transportation, provide the routes. As you know, there's no secret here that we've had 44 late buses this year. This is not typical of when the district ran transportation. It's not reflective of the first year with First Student. We had late buses when we ran transportation, and we had late buses in the first year with First Student. That's a matter of fact. We accept that as a matter of doing business. But what we don't expect and can't accept is the perpetual and continuing nature of this. Now, while it might appear that you're hearing information that suggests that First Student has all these people in the wings to get training, I'm not disregarding the fact that that may be true. But we've also had that in other instances throughout this year, throughout the summer, and you need to understand that while all those things look good, they don't necessarily materialize in drivers that stay with us for a long period of time. In fact, the information that we receive from First Student suggests that for every 10 drivers they put through training, they're able to keep 1, possibly 2. Now, with that said, that tells you and it gives you some information that maybe you didn't already have. But I'm telling you that while it would be important for us to allow First Student to address this issue, the simple fact that not only are they 7 drivers short of the runs that are currently scheduled, they're also not able to meet the need if a driver just happens to get sick or is not able to get in. And so that creates this mechanism of significant shortage on any given day. I mean, we have good drivers. I'm sorry, First Student has good drivers. I mean, no argument. The problem is they're people just like everyone else. They get sick or they have appointments and they deserve to be able to take the days off that they want to take off. But if we don't have drivers to support them, I can't continue to allow my students or my parents to suffer. And so what I'm asking for this evening is an opportunity to address the issue. Now, you may ask yourself, well, then why don't we do this for a temporary period and not for the remainder of the school year? Well, let me explain. The remainder of the school year is designed to get the commitment from the other vendor. They have to employ someone, and the only way they get you to come and work for them is to guarantee that you will have work for an extended period of time. We currently use METS for a lot of different special activities and or fill-ins and or for athletic events. They've done a good job for us, and they're the primary reason, because of our relationship with them today, is the primary reason why we're recommending them for these 4 runs. It is 4 runs. I'm really hopeful that by the end of the school year, this matter is behind us. We never have to use them again unless it's something that comes up, hit or miss. So I really want to just let you know that, I mean, if this fails, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we don't have a whole lot of other good strategies to address the 17 shortage. So, please allow me to do the work that I need to do in making sure that we have, this addressed. But to not, pass it as a measure for whatever reason, it puts our students in harm's way, because we can't continue to operate with having 44 late buses. We just can't continue doing that. So I need some stopgap. This is a reasonable stopgap to allow for a student to get the levels of people up. And lastly, about the issues with the union. If they were employed by us, then by all means, look at me and tell me that I should be doing something. But they're not employed by me now, and I can't control what the union does or doesn't do regarding that. And
still have the opportunity to bid on those jobs.
well, again, I'm communicating to the board. This is the conversation with the board. I appreciate your comments, and I'm being reasonable to let you know that and everyone know that I can't control that. I can speak with them, and I plan to speak with them in order to encourage them to do whatever it is that they should be doing with respects to how it operates. I don't control a union process, and nor do I plan to get involved in that.
Okay.
All I want to do is make sure that we have a proper solution going forward, and right now, I can't continue to operate the way we're operating. So that's why the recommendation is on the table for your consideration this evening.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, we're basically putting the discussion before the motion. My question is, and this point was made out there, first student, them contracting with METS and using METS and then billing us, is that something that they are able to do through their contract? I guess, what's the logistics here of us contracting with METS versus first student contracting with them and then billing us?
We asked that, actually, when we were out looking at other potential providers, and that was not something that was going to be acceptable to first student. So it was requested, it was a request, it was reviewed, and it was brought back to us that they would not contract with another entity and then bill us.
Okay, if I don't get a motion, we're going to move on.
You know what? I'd like to make the motion I will make the motion on this, and I hope somebody seconds it, with the sole purpose of entertaining discussion. That's what we need to do. That's how we need to do it. I do not plan on voting for this if I don't feel after discussion that has not answered my question.
Well, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I think Dr. Zerbe's made a statement. If we're not inclined to support his recommendation, he'll have to come back with something else.
But we need to make a motion so we can...
All right, so you're making...
So I'm making a motion to accept item number G, METS bus service, as written.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Roth and a second by Ms. Hackett. Go ahead, Ms. Barone.
Okay.
Discussion.
All right, my first question is to Mr. Whiteleather. If you ask that question to them, is there a penalty to first student for them not fulfilling the contract that we contracted them to do?
There's actually multiple penalties that can be levied against them. One is for contracting out of service that they cannot provide, up to the $1,000 a day that was referred to earlier. There are also other provisions within the agreement, penalties ranging from additional $50 a day to $100 a day, depending upon multiple criteria. I can't reference those specifically, but those two provisions.
But for what we're asking them to do, there is a penalty.
That is correct.
And are we going to ask them to fulfill that penalty and pay this fee if we were to do that?
They have no choice in the matter, as long there is a very clear delineation in the contract that states if the service is not satisfactory to the school district can secure other services to provide what would be deemed satisfactory service, and then recoup those charges back from first student to offset our outlay of funds for supplying what we need to provide service to our students.
Okay, and are we going to do that? Because Dr. Zerbe made it seem like we were trying to just be a friendly guy here instead of fulfilling this contract. So is that what we're going to do?
We will be doing that.
And I do want to follow up, because as I look at this, as someone said earlier, safety is first for these kids. And if you're saying that we've used this bus service before, do they all have clearances? Do they all have the same safety standards that we've decided to contract out so that everybody's equal in every bus?
Yes, any bus driver, the requirements to be a bus driver are governed by the state. So any person that wants to be a bus driver, they have to comply with the CDL licensure, with the S endorsement. They have to have all their clearances. All the compliance measures are a mechanism of the state saying a person must have all these things in place, which METS does in order to provide service. We would not have been able to use them for sports trips and other situations where we have currently used them in supplement to First Student in the past and current.
So let me suggest something. It doesn't seem like there's an inclination to support this. You know, Mr. Roth, why don't you withdraw your motion, and we can have Dr. Zerbe come back to the board with another alternative to fix this issue. Unless, I mean, I think there's no point in having a vote on a motion that no one's in support of, and I don't see a lot of support.
I wouldn't necessarily jump to that so quick. I think Stuart made a couple good points there. One is contractually, we have recourse. Two, we're in the service industry to our resident parents, students, make sure they have an adequate bus service. I mean, that's our responsibility here. So, I mean, if the administration's telling us there's recourse on First Student for us recovering some of the funds here, and it meets the criteria to serving our students and our parents properly, I think it's our responsibility to make this happen. Other than the little squabbles with contract-wise, I think we have to provide this service for our parents and our students. So I don't think this is something that I'm willing to go back and massage some more when we already have a contract. There's recourse on the contract, and that's something that the solicitor and the administration is going to have to figure out. But our end, I think our fiduciary responsibility is to the children and the parents to make sure they have bus service that's on time and that's adequate.
I mean, I concur. I don't want to hang my hat on the fact that First Student's going to have 7 or 10 or 12 or 15 drivers training, and we're going to have a couple. I want to get this bus situation fixed now for these 45 buses that are late, for the parents that are dealing with this sort of thing.
I'd like to chime in too, because I actually have ridden METS buses in chaperoning with the marching band a couple weeks ago. The drivers were very polite, very nice. The buses seemed safe to me. They ran very well. I don't have a problem using the company per se. I wanted to make sure that the school district was not outlaying any extra money to subcontract or provide extra busing when First Student is liable for this. Okay, to me it's unsatisfactory, totally across the board. I don't care what the situation is with the driver shortages. It may happen. Happens in all industries, okay? But a contract's a contract. We have a contract with First Student. I am sincerely hoping, I would like a further report as to all the penalties that we will be going against them for this, okay? I believe, that my questions have been answered. The last question I have is, as far as the other busing companies that we reviewed, what were those companies?
We reached out to TSA, one other firm who escaped my mind, but we can certainly provide. We did reach out to as many contractors in the area as we could. A lot of districts are experiencing the same shortage of drivers as we are. As far as just going through and soliciting proposals from multiple, we did not get multiple proposals back. We were successful in securing with METS, and I think a large part of why METS was willing to provide this is because we have a long-standing relationship with them in providing services, as you speak of on one of the trips you took. Mr. Metz, who owns the company, had referenced that during the discussions, that because of a long-standing relationship that he's had with Methacton School District, that he was willing to help us out. The driver shortage is a real issue. But as Dr. Zerbe spoke about, and I can speak specifically of the issues that we've had, it's not so much as Dr. Zerbe is saying we had 44 late buses. It's the number of calls that we receive, parents who are very upset their buses are consistently late, their kids are missing events or other things outside of the school day, that becomes very personal to us when we're trying to provide the service that these parents in our community deserve. So as we were looking at the issue and the problems, it's not simply a mechanism of saying 44 late buses. It's 44 late buses times 30 kids a bus, times all those parents contacting us and saying, you need to do something, Methacton School District. This is unacceptable. We spent a number of hours meeting with First Student, not only First Student staff here serving Methacton School District on site, we've met with their general manager. We're setting up meetings with their senior vice president of operations to address this issue. But the primary motive behind us looking to address the situation is to help First Student addressing the driver shortage. In conversations that we've had with them, driver recruitment and especially retention is the big issue. Recruitment of drivers is one step of a process. The retention of those drivers over a long period of time is a secondary and equally important issue. Even if they have 12 drivers or 20 drivers in the pipeline, they may be able to retain a fraction of those. So in order for us to look at the long-term sustainability of our operation, that was also a consideration of how we looked at this. And this wasn't done simply as a Methacton School District. This was in constant consultation with First Student, all the folks involved, and what do we need to do to address this problem. And I think a good reflection of what we need to do is work together. I mean, that was the premise of the whole discussion that we had with First Student is what do we need to do to work together in order to resolve this issue? And that's the reason why we bring this here to you tonight. We want to recognize the issue, let you know what we've done, and let's move forward and address this in a proactive manner so that we can get kids home on time and work towards a long-term resolution with them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's primary here. Number one is getting the kids to and from school in a reasonable amount of time. And if we have an issue like this, it has to be addressed. So my motion is still standing.
I just have a question. If they do have 12 drivers in the pipeline and say all 12 of them pass and they want to drive buses, but now we don't have any buses because we've outsourced it to Mets. So are we, where do those guys go then from First Student now that they've trained all these guys, but now they don't have any runs for them?
Well, they're currently down 7 runs, so we took 4. So that means 3 permanent runs are still available, plus 10 sub runs. So that 13 staff members would be available to appoint. I spoke with First Student late last week, and they have 12 drivers in the pipeline. So all of the drivers that are currently in the pipeline to be trained have positions available for them.
So they wouldn't be taking over any of these runs here, right? So that they have other runs.
These runs that the Mets would take over are currently unoccupied runs. As far as there's no permanent staff member in those runs.
Being late November, I think, as mentioned, reliability and implication of safety for the students and the parents, it's time to fix it. So I'm compelled to try to do something in that regard. However, I got a couple of questions. One is operational, one is financial. How will 4 buses for Mets interact with First Student with regard to snow delays or late buses, or how will that communication take place? Is there a process in place that will make sure that these 4 Mets buses are equally informed and the students and parents at the same time that all of the other First Student buses will be?
Yes, we actually had discussion with both First Student and Mets in terms of communication, whether it be snow delays or a problem with the late bus, whatever the case may be. Communication from the Mets vehicles would be transmitted back to dispatch operations, whether it be a late bus or some other issue. That communication would obviously be provided out the same way as we do now, whether that be through our Alert Now system or through another means, whatever the case may be. Early starts, late dismissals, cancellations would function the same way. Decision would be made from the district. Decision would be communicated down to operation. Operation would then make the contact out to first student as well as METS. School is either delayed, late start, an early dismissal, or a cancellation. So the communication has been clearly defined between METS, the school district, and first student. We even also talked about emergency situations. What if there's a bus accident? How do we handle that? Obviously, that is critical. The communication between the bus back to the dispatcher, to emergency personnel, all those discussions have taken place so that we ensure that anytime we have an issue or a matter that we need to address, it's done based upon a clear written set of procedures that we have in place that have been reviewed with all parties.
My other question is regarding the finances, and I clearly understand that we will not be paying for a student the monies that will then be paying METS, so with the exception of the 75 cents per run difference, there's essentially no cost to the district. What I'm more interested in and concerned with is that First Student has failed in this regard to give us satisfactory service in these 4 routes, and they are losing the revenue for the 4 routes, but they're not losing anything further. And my concern would be that a vendor of this type who sees no penalty in this regard might be also allowing 4 more routes to get late without any punitive penalty other than losing the revenue for it. And so I'm wondering, of these penalties that are in the contract, at what point, given that you need to keep a relationship, are you planning to implement additional penalties on top of the loss of revenue that they'll experience?
While it was stated earlier that we're pursuing the matter on the penalties, I can tell you that our intent is to have the discussion with the regional vice president of operations in order to determine after that, at the conclusion of that conversation and whatever the plan will be going forward from First Student to address our issue, we will then be able to report back to the board what we plan to do at the conclusion of that meeting. Again, our goal, while it may not be in a short time frame, a look at this saying, hey, why don't we leverage the penalties? We have a 10-year agreement. Okay, and so, it's my job to make sure that we start, taking the steps necessary in order to let them know that we want to work together, but we're at the point now where we've done all the talking we can. We're taking it one last step to that vice president, and from that moment, we'll know whether or not it's just a matter of, if I get the same lip service, we're going to the penalties. But if I get some action,
well, I would say,
then I may, determine otherwise. But again, this is a long-term relationship, and while we can, enact some of those penalties, it creates a turmoil within the relationship, and I don't want that to happen.
But on that point, it shouldn't, right? I think penalties are part of the relationship, and when the one party doesn't fulfill their part of the responsibility, then there are penalties involved. So I would say that we shouldn't worry about the relationship. We should hold them accountable.
But if that's the direction of the board, we can go back historically and take care of that as the board so directs. I mean, I don't certainly have an issue with that. I don't disagree with the comment. I just want you to know that while we're dealing with the matter on a day-to-day basis, we're trying our best to keep it from...
We understand that, and I don't think we're saying go out swinging first, but what we're saying is don't dance around penalties because of the relationship. Relationship, if it's going to be strong, it's going to survive the contract, and there's going to be ups and downs, and they're going to pay for the downs, and that's just how it's going to be.
Okay, but wait, can I have one more clarification? Because I asked this question at the beginning of the discussion, and Mr. Whiteleather said we are enacting penalties, and you just said we're not. So what are we doing?
We're pursuing the penalties.
Okay, but you just said that you are going to wait and see about the relationship. Mr. Whiteleather said that we are going to go through the penalty phase because we are essentially not going to be paying this $231. That first student will be paying the $231 for Met's buses. Now, you just said that you're not sure about the relationship and you don't want to damage it, so what are we doing?
What we're doing is we're going to meet with the regional vice president, and as a result of that meeting, we will determine whether, what I said was we would determine whether or not we're going to leverage the penalties. If the board so is inclined for us to leverage them prior to that and going back, I certainly can do that. Again, I'm telling you what we're doing. We are pursuing the matter, and we feel that was the appropriate way to do it. But if the board sees it differently, I have no problem moving forward in a different manner.
Okay, so if you're telling me you have to still meet with the Vice President of Operations, that means as of right now, as of the second that we are voting on this item, we're paying $231 a day because you haven't enacted the penalties yet.
We're paying the same amount that we would have paid for the same 4 runs, or actually 4 buses and 10 runs that we would have paid to first students. So when I presented this item earlier this evening, I stated that it would be no additional cost to the district. And if we enact the penalties, it will be at a reduced cost to the district.
So we're going to have to pay them, we're going to have to pay merchants no matter what. The question is whether we get the reimbursement back from...
Didn't you say earlier that we were going to put penalties against them for this action, for us using this extra bus service?
Correct. We have, what happens is when we would contract out a vehicle with another provider, that fee would be removed from first student. So it's not a double. It's not continuing to pay first student and pay METs. It would be first student would stop being paid for that run, and then the other contractor would be paid for that. So there would be no, as Dr. Zerbe spoke about, there's no cost increase to Methacton School District.
So then maybe it's semantics, but we are enacting penalties. We're not waiting to enact penalties. We're enacting the penalties.
So we're enacting penalties from the sense that they're going to lose revenue,
Right.
but I don't think they're yet contemplating. Well, we can do both. We haven't yet done that.
Right.
They haven't yet got to that state. I think the consensus of the board sounds like if this passes, then we want you to be, want you to hold them accountable. And I don't think you need to go in and throw something on the table tomorrow that says, here are penalties, but have a frank conversation with these folks. And the school board expects that we're going to be reimbursed for these actions, and we're going to hold them accountable. Okay. Additional discussion?
I'm not sure that I totally understand where we stand on penalties at this point. It seems to me they should have a penalty, and I don't know whether it takes an action from us to say that we should administer contracts in that way so that they are for the benefit of the district, and penalties to people who don't fulfill their requirements.
That's not a board action. I mean, that's the contract signed, the administration manages that. I mean,
I think it was being suggested that we may decide not to enact the penalties in certain cases, and I think we should address that.
Further discussion?
Just to Brenda's point, the option, I think, is to amend the motion that says that if by 1 month from today or December 21st, a corrective action plan that is acceptable has not been presented to the administration, that penalties will be enforced, so that there's a timeline on when that step will take place.
I mean, we're micromanaging this to a bit, right? I think we give the administration direction. I think they get a sense that we're unhappy with the situation, and I think they manage the contract. But if the administration comes back and says we haven't taken any penalties and things haven't gotten any better, I think that whatever board is here is going to act on that. So okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so there's a motion from Mr. Roth and a second from Ms. Hackett to authorize the administration to contract with Met's busing service to provide 472 passenger buses and drivers for the remainder of the year, $231 per day, pending solicitor review of contract. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? 7-2, passes. And I think that you've got a sense of the board's feeling about this. Okay. Okay. Very good. Moving on to item number 10, personnel items. Mr. Harney.
Yes, this evening we have 2 professional resignations on the agenda for your approval. We have 3 classified resignations on the agenda, 1 change of status professional. We have 2 change of status classified on the agenda this evening, 1 uncompensated leave classified. We have 11 supplemental contracts for your approval this evening. We're asking your addition of Gilbert Price to our community education swim program as lifeguard this evening. We have 5 additions to our classified substitute list, which we also call our casual on-call list. And we're asking for your approval of the list of volunteers.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to take any of these separately? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve item number 10 as presented. Mr. Phillips, is there a second? Ms. Barone? Any discussion? Ms. Woodring?
I guess I just need Mr. Harney's clarification between item B, where we have a resignation, and then it looks like down under I, we have that same person. Is that a different position? Is that full-time, is that part-time?
She's resigning from her full-time position as a MESPA employee. She is now on the district's casual on-call list as a part-time substitute.
Other discussion? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Ms. Hackett.
Just a question on the supplemental contracts. That's in accordance with the agreements that we have in place, the amounts that are for each of those people. I noticed the amounts differ from sport to sport and things of that sort.
And they can actually be, within the sport, they can be different depending on the person's experience. So they're all contracted amounts, and the formula that's used to drive out all those amounts are also contractually bound.
Anything else? Seeing none, so we have a motion and a second to approve personnel items. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to item 11, curriculum and programs. Ms. Katona.
There are 2 items this evening for your approval. One is for the Methacton High School course removals for 2016-17. The courses listed here would not appear in the program planning guide for the upcoming year. These are a result either of low student interest or other courses becoming more relevant. And there is also an item on here for Methacton High School course proposals for 2016-17 for these 4 courses, the Advanced Placement European History, iLearn Classroom, iLearn Certification, and Website Design, as noted here for the amount of credits.
Thank you. So is there a motion to approve item 11 as presented? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Mr. Pellicano, discussion. Ms. Byrne?
Mrs. Katona, can you, I have a question about the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Access classes. When they're taken in succession, they are able to earn a child 3 credits towards college. And I'm just wondering if there's students that are in that cluster right now, is this going to be phased out, or are we just cutting off everything?
The high school administration is aware of a number of few students, a handful of students really, that they have in that actual situation, and because of those special circumstances, they are going to work with those students to see that they can go all the way through it.
And that'll be at the high school? They'll be able to still do it on site? Okay, thank you.
Out of curiosity, what's the reasoning for the elimination of the Microsoft classes? The kids know more about it than we do by the time they get to high school?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really using these a lot
Yeah.
before they ever set foot in the high school.
Okay, makes sense. Other discussion? Ms. Woodring?
Yeah, I guess to follow up on that, those 4 courses together were the 3 credits. Is that considered a dual enrollment course?
Yes, that was a dual enrollment.
So the fact that, I guess question 1 is, does anything in B replace that 3-credit course that we're removing?
It is not as dual enrollment at this time. I would suspect that the high school will be looking for other opportunities for something in that area. However, the iLearn and the iLearn is independent learning environment and responsible networking, which the high school is trying to work toward more with some of the technology initiatives. And the iLearn Classroom and the iLearn Certification would be 2 opportunities for students to, work toward greater knowledge of, how things in terms of using technology worldwide, what that looks like, growing in their skills and communication through technology, et cetera. So as of right now, as far as the dual enrollment piece, it doesn't replace it. As I said, I'm sure that they will look for more opportunities for dual enrollment, but it does kind of give a different angle to students using technology, since they do come in with a lot of that background in the Microsoft Office.
Okay, so last question then. Does our number of dual enrollment courses in any way influence our SPP score?
Yes, but there's a certain threshold which we are already at.
So it's not going to influence ours?
And so it should not do that.
All right, thank you.
Other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion from Ms. Hackett and a second from Mr. Pelicano. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. Move on to item number 12, policy. Dr. Zerbe.
There are no policies for first reading this evening. However, under second reading, there are 6 policies: strategic plan, comprehensive plan, exemption from instruction, adoption of textbooks, instructional supplies, and school counseling. I will bring note to the board that at the last meeting of the board, under first reading, there was a policy of 111, lesson plans, that was removed from second reading so that I can address the language with other members of my administrative team, and with hopes to bring that back to the board in the near future. And that ends the matters associated with policy under 12.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve 12B, items 1 through 6 as presented? Ms. Woodring, is there a second? Ms. Barone, discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Again, Dr. Zerbe, item 13, other gifts, donations, sponsorships.
Yes, accept a gift of $3,000 from the Education Foundation for the Methacton community for continued fulfillment of the electric car grant as presented this evening.
Well, we already took the check, so I think...
Yeah, we're gonna, it wasn't signed, though.
That's right.
Accept the gift for $225 from the Lunch Bunch of Lower Providence Presbyterian Church for the backpack program. Accept the gift of $1,000 from IBM to support the academic programs at Audubon Elementary School. Accept a gift of a mascot costume at Audubon from Audubon Home and School of $375. Accept a gift of 5 classroom carpets from Audubon Home and School, value of $2,275.25. Accept a gift of $500 from Phoenixville Community Health Foundation for the backpack program at Audubon Elementary School. Accept a gift of $200 from an anonymous donor for Worcester Elementary School. Accept a gift of wrestling singlets from Mike and Joanna Morabito for Methacton High School wrestling team, a value of $1,507. Accept a gift of exercise equipment from Kim Woodring for the athletic training program, a value of $75. And accept the sponsorship in the amount of $500 of Roth Flores as a trailer sponsor for the Methacton School District Marching Band effective August 31st, 2017. In addition, under trips, there are 2 trips listed, one for the Methacton High School girls basketball team with a registration fee of $300, and a trip for the high school marching band with a registration fee of $500.
Okay, so I'm going to make this easy on Kim and Herb. So I'll ask for a motion to approve, as presented, everything in item 13 except for A9 and A10. Is there a motion? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Mr. Phillips, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Ask for a motion to approve the item A9, the gift of exercise equipment from Kim Woodring. Is there a motion? Ms. Barone, second. Mr. Phillips, discussion? All those in favor?
Demonstrations.
Whoa. Opposed, abstention?
Me.
Okay, approved, 8-0 with 1 abstention. And then item, 13-9-10, sponsorship of $500 from Roth Flores. Is there a motion? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Mr. Pellicano? Assuming there's no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? 8-0 with 1 abstention. All right. Item number 14, dates for board members' calendar. Please be aware that 1 week from tonight, December 1st, will be our annual reorganization meeting and combined regular December board meeting at 7 o'clock in the LGI. Item 15, old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Okay. Item number 16, new business. Any board member? Mr. Phillips.
Yes, I'd like, and I seem to do this every year, make a motion to adopt, the school board to adopt for a budget for 2016-17 with a no increase to local property taxes. So that'd be a 0 tax increase for 2016 and 17.
So you're making a motion to direct the administration to prepare a budget with no tax increase?
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second. Sorry, but I'll second that.
All right. A second from Mr. Roth. Discussion. We'll do discussion from the board, and then we'll open it to public comment. I'll start with you, Mr. Phillips.
Well, I've always said 0 tax increase. We have to give a break. For the last 35 years, we've increased taxes except for last year. And I want to do it again. And I think it's something that we should be striving for every year. I feel the administration should be presenting us with a budget that's a 0 increase, so we understand what that looks like, and go through the process of balancing the budget and having a 0 tax increase.
Okay. Further discussion? Mr. Pellicano?
I guess I'd say Mr. Phillips' motion is commendable. It probably presents a pretty uphill challenge. Looking at the Act 1 index of about 2.4% this coming year, I mean, that would yield about $1.6 million in, I think, additional revenue. I think we're getting close to about $370,000 between our basic ed and our special ed subsidies on top of that. So, we'd be taking in, if we went the whole Act 1 index, we'd be having about $2 million extra to play with. Now, obviously, we got increase in pension and other things we got to deal with and all that. But, I think your motion is commendable, but I think trying to work within maybe an Act 1 index might be more realistic, if you ask my opinion.
Additional comment?
I agree that trying to work within the Act 1 index is what we should be aiming for, definitely, for this year. If we can achieve a zero tax increase, we should do everything we can to make that happen. I think we should try to have a zero tax increase. I think if we endeavor to do that as opposed to insist on doing that, I think that could be a reasonable approach. So I would suggest an amendment to Mr. Phillips' motion and say, instead of directing the administration, that we would ask the administration to endeavor to reach a 0% tax increase.
Are you willing to amend your motion?
No, and the reason why, it seems every time the state puts a number on Act 1, administration can find it, they can get there. It's just like a weightlifter lifting weights. If you're always there picking the weights up instead of the weightlifter picking the weights up, he doesn't gain any strength. This is something where I think the administration has to go through, present it to us, show us what their hurdles are in making it, and it'll give the board a better understanding of what the administration's dealing with, what the district has to accomplish. Sitting there saying, hey, we'd like to do that, but if you present something within the Act 1, it doesn't make anybody make the tough decisions. I know everybody here at one time or another has campaigned for a zero tax increase, and I know this last election, it was we raised taxes for the last 35 years. So I think this is something that the administration should go through every year, presenting a balanced budget with a zero tax increase, and at least the board will be able to see where the real costs are coming from and make some decisions. And it just needs to be done. And we can always add in the tax bill, if people would like to give more money towards taxes, send an additional check. I mean, we won't turn that away. So I think it needs to be done. Thanks.
Mr. McFarland.
First, without getting into a long dissertation, I'm very pleased and proud of the accomplishments of the Finance Committee led by Greg Pelicano and also with Maria and Brenda that resulted in a 0% tax increase for the current year. And I know that in the work of that committee that Greg had identified a number of other efficiencies that we could look at that might give us some additional savings opportunities going forward. So there's reason to think that we could manage it. However, the Harrisburg situation is completely unclear, especially with today's events. And I believe that this issue is one, while I believe that our increased credit rating and our increased cash position, all of which is a result of the Finance Committee and the board's efforts over the last 12 months, leave the district in better position than it was in a year ago. I also believe the next board should deal with this, and I would not support a vote on this tonight. I think the vote should be taken by the future board next week.
I'll just have to add, not even to look at a budget, to have the administration look at a budget, I don't know what everybody's scared of. What's the problem with looking at a balanced budget at a zero tax increase? I just don't understand it. Everybody's already succumbing to, well, we can get to 1.9, 1.7, or 2.4 if we take the exceptions. We all know we can make that. How do we know that? We didn't even go through the exercise of seeing what the budget's going to look like. So if that number of 1.7, 1.9, or 2.4, what's the difference whether you look at that number or a zero tax increase? I mean, we're already negotiating that we're going to raise taxes. So And if everybody's they're complaining about paying high taxes, and it's a problem in the state, it's a problem locally, why are we right out of the gate starting on the plus side of increasing taxes? I really don't understand what the problem is, why everybody's afraid to even look at that. I mean, I just don't get it.
Additional comments? Discussion?
Yeah. Several years ago, a previous superintendent actually did go through this exercise and went down a list, provided us a list in order to reach 0%. And the list of things that we had to decide, well, we're going to cut or keep. And I think that's actually a really good exercise for school boards to go through, because it puts in perspective exactly what we're looking at, exactly what we're coming through. I mean, some of Stuart's presentations are always enlightening, but it doesn't really sink in until you see what has to go in order to get down to the 0%. Or maybe shift something around and take something out of here to make something work. And that's the reason why I seconded Mr. Phillips's motion, is because I think it should become standard practice that this be done with the school board. It's one of these deals where, we achieved the 0% last year, and then this year we may have to, go within the index, but certainly I don't want to even go near the exceptions, because that would be just insane. I just think that, having the administration provide this information would be worthwhile, and especially considering you're going to have a new school board next week. I think that this budget process is going to be moving along at a pretty good clip over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and I think it would be very, very good for the members to see what it's like. Thank you.
Additional comments? You have a comment? Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate the comments from the board this evening with regards to, not raising taxes or raising taxes, whatever it may be. We had several conversations since my arrival here in Methacton, and while certainly as elected officials, you have certain obligations and certain things that you need to attend to, and I appreciate that and I respect that. As a superintendent of schools, I have certain things that I need to attend to, and first of all, safety and instruction of our students are the utmost important thing that I need to deal with. And while Mr. McFarland makes point that we don't know what's going on in Harrisburg, and it's changing daily, it puts a lot of stress on my administration, specifically working, trying to achieve what the dialogue appears to be here, that my administration hasn't been providing the information that would reach a zero budget. In fact, while we don't come to you and say, this is what you have to cut in order to get to zero, we certainly bring to you and have brought to you the information in multiple fashion in order to show you the big picture and the detail behind that big picture about what those cost drivers are on an annual basis. As we all know through our multiple discussions, and this is a serious matter, those cost drivers continue to control our decisions. Those cost drivers are people. We're a people business. We need those people. There's no other choice about it. But bringing those people on, bring salaries, bring benefits, bring other types of needs, and certainly they deserve those things. We're also, as you're well aware, we're also caught in this quagmire of a situation where not only do we need to continue looking at how, not only do we continue to provide the programs and services that our community expects, but how do we take it to the next step? Methacton is ripe for an opportunity to, especially as part of this strategic planning process, to go to the next level. You've initiated that process. Our community is engaged. I mean, we have 90-some people applying to participate in the process that I hope will lead us to some really good opportunities over the next 6 years. But to suggest that my administration and myself are not providing you the information that will get you to zero, we may not necessarily be providing you with the list that you're referring to, Mr. Roth, that was done several years ago, where these are the list of the programs that we have to cut in order to get to zero. I don't know if it's fruitful or worth my energy to bring you a list of programs that we need to cut. I'm trying to make sure that we can sustain the programs within the constraints that are available to me. I mean, if the constraints are zero, well then then a board takes action and makes that and gives me that direction, and I must follow it. But if the priority of the board and the priority of the community is to make sure that we have high quality programs and that we have those programs that are commensurate with the expectations of our community, I don't know if I can deliver that same result with a no-cost increase, knowing that we're a people business. Predominantly our costs are associated with the people, and that would mean that cutting of programs would really mean cutting of people. And so while that may be appropriate in some respects or in some people's vision, I just want you to know that it's very challenging not only to get to zero, considering how we got to zero this past year, but to take that process and then suggest that we get to zero in its future year, knowing that our costs are rising almost double the amount that our availability to raise revenue is. And so likely it would in order to make a minor cut would mean or in order to even stay with the index, we might likely have to, and I don't have the budget together yet, we're in that process, but I don't want to cut programs at the same time raising taxes. That doesn't work either. With the legislature's move to put Act 1 in place, it was designed to put a squeeze on the budgetary process for school districts. I get that, we're working with that, and I appreciate your cooperation. We've done a good job, and we've increased our standing within Moody's. We've done a lot of good things, but to force my hand at this point when I can't tell you with certainty where we stand is difficult. And I just want you to be aware of that. And Mr. McFarland makes a point that while this board is certainly capable of charging me with moving forward with a 0% process or no cost increase or no tax increase process, it will be the board that takes formation on December 1 that will have to finalize that decision, and therefore cuffing me or cuffing them might make it even that much more difficult. So I just want you to consider that in this process, and certainly want you to know that I do respect your opinions and respect the matters that are before you as well, and your obligation for your positions. So I just want you to be aware of that, and I appreciate you allowing me to comment on the matter.
Certainly. Go ahead.
Just as you know, the state's going through your mic's on. The state's going through the process of changing how property taxes are done. And what's going to happen is they're going to start taking our money and distributing it throughout the state. And they're going to sit there and say, Dave, you're stuck with a zero tax increase or a zero budget increase, okay, whether you like it or not, whether this board tells you to do it or not. And this is something that we're going to have to start getting used to in this district, being that our demographics, our wealth in this district, the quality of this district, the state's going to start going after these type districts to balance their budget throughout the rest of the state. And they're going to start chopping our money. So as a board, we got to start getting used to the idea of we're not going to be able to increase our budget. It's not going to be that we're not going to increase taxes. We're not going to be able to increase our budget. And that's coming down the road. So we might as well get used to the fact that we should work within the constraints of bouncing our budget, not increasing our budget, and taking a look at it and understanding what's going to happen. And if we don't start looking at what's going to happen to our budget down the road and go through this exercise, we're going to really be hurting. We're going to have to make some quick, hasty decisions coming up because the state mandates that instead of this 1.7% increase, they're going to say 0, whether we like it or not. So, I understand what you're saying, Dave, but I think it's something that you and the administration have to give to the board to give us an understanding, because this is going to be the future coming from this state when they're controlling our money at the state rather than the board being able to control the money.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so at this time I'm going to open the floor to public comment on board action item, on this action item.
Andrew Sander, Lower Providence, and as a son of some fixed income people who live in North Jersey, I do commend the 0% tax increase. I understand how hard it is on our community at times to take that. However, I do agree with Dr. Zerbe. I know we don't often agree, but this is a spot where we're going to agree. The reason why you're hearing people like Mr. Pelicano say that it would be not a good thing is because it would be a complete waste of time for them to do that. If you want to get an understanding of what you would have to cut if the state enacts whatever they enact, you need to get a bottoms-up budget of what does it cost for us to do what we're doing today. And then you need to say, as Dr. Zerbe pointed out, we've lost a little bit of ground educationally. What do we need to do, and what are those costs for us to get back to where we were educationally, make our community a little bit more desirable again? We've lost ground in Springford and some people around us. So you don't want to start with saying, oh, it's 0% and then work your way down. I know, Mr. Pelicano, it's funny. But what you want to do, you agree with me?
I disagree with you.
Yeah, okay, that's good. You need to understand what it costs. You need to understand what it takes to create a good school district. Not just say, hey, we're going to cut our costs. We're going to come up with a 0%. I mean, we have pension liabilities. It's amazing that we've somehow gotten through Moody's, but we have pension liabilities that we have no way of reserving for. We had a $2 million budget surplus last year, and we're taking $1 million of it and putting it towards the fields. We have, if you look at our capital reserves and our reserves, they're way below what the state recommends that you have as reserves. Way below. They are. Okay. If we were a bank, and I have a great background in this. If we were a bank, investigators would be coming in here to potentially try to shut us down, because we don't have a plan to pay for liabilities that are out there. It's that simple. That's all I have.
Additional comment on board action item, Mr. Earnshaw?
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. Couple things. One, procedurally, you might want to table this. I mean, you're adding a voting item to the agenda, and I can stand here and comment on it because I happen to be here. So there could be other people in the public who may want to comment, either could fully agree with you or could totally disagree. They should be given the opportunity to comment, and by voting tonight, they don't have that if we're not here. Keep in mind how you got to a 0% tax increase. You had a lot of one-time items, $900,000 in reserves, so you're already starting $900,000 in the hole. You got pension increase going up, I think, $800,000, contractual salary increases. So I fully appreciate the objective of a 0%, but usually if you're going to recommend that, bring some ideas to the table. I've heard no ideas. You can't send the administration off to try to find close to $3 million if you don't have any idea yourself. Doesn't make any sense. The comment about zero-basing the budget, I fully agree with that. You got to take a look at what's it costs. Start from zero, and what do I need to provide a quality education? You got to take a look at all the little expenses. I mean, I spoke about $27,000 for a contractor to do a long-term project, capital spending plan that could have been done in-house. There was a letter that went to the community for $1,900 that says, we're going to communicate with you in the future. What was the point of that? So you got to take a look at every spending that's happening, and maybe you can get to that 0%. And it's also a question, do you want the administration running off trying to do this when there's a lot against them, or do you want them to focus on getting the buses to run on time? Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comment? Candy.
Candy Alba, Igaville. I'm not going to, I happen to agree with Mr. Phillips because he has done this every year since he's been on the school board. First thing the board needs to do is to consider the taxpayers first, not just the community where the taxpayers have children in the school district. You have a whole segment of your community that is affected by this. Granted, a 0% tax increase was great last year, but it didn't change the tax bill. If it was hard to pay last year or the year before, it will be harder to pay this year. There's a lot of people that say, oh no, the economy is great. I know more people in this school district that don't believe that anymore. They don't. They're struggling. You have to sit back and think, and the new board has to sit back, are you comfortable with raising taxes and not addressing the issues in the school district to see people lose their homes? We're averaging 7 sheriff sales a month in this school district, still. Now, we raised taxes when times were good. No one spoke out against it. We raised taxes when times were bad because we gave out generous salary increases, we gave out generous benefits. No one's salary was frozen. But your taxpayers' salaries were either frozen or they lost their salaries and they lost their homes. These are things that every school board has to take in consideration, and I understand that. I may not be a financial expert, but I can add 1 + 1 = 2. And at some point to sit here and say, well, the state hasn't done a budget. When is that a shock in Pennsylvania? We had 8 years where there was never a budget approved. This shouldn't be surprising. It's not surprising because people in this state are angry. We're looking at our school taxes going up, our local taxes going up, our county taxes. Now they want to tax us on the state level. And they wonder why people want to see property tax elimination, because they can't handle this anymore. And anybody says everything's you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. Everything might be great now. But the first thing you have to do is, how will this affect your taxpayers? If there's people out there that are willing to pay anything, fine, let them pay it. I have no issue with that. But while you're raising our taxes, everything is going up. And in my household, the income is not. So I take more away from my household to pay for the school district when I've heard for 10 years it's for the students, it's for the students, and for the students. And I've watched the students in this school district get less and less and less. When you're done paying your bills, the salaries and benefits, your debt service, your legal fees, and anything else, the students get the crumbs. And we saw some very impressive students tonight that have worked very hard in spite of the fact we don't have tons of money to throw at them. And I know there's school districts in worse shape than us. They're laying teachers off. But in the midst of money problems, we gave the teachers a new contract with no board discussion. None. So you have to, and we're coming up in, 2 years for another contract. But you have to take your taxpayers in consideration first, no matter what decisions you make. And that's just not the parents with kids, that's everyone. But unfortunately, not everyone speaks out. But this is what you have to do. You have to take us, because if you don't, those taxpayers will lose their home, you will lose revenue. And I personally don't understand how school boards can live with themselves when they watch their taxpayers lose their homes. And I've watched taxpayers lose homes that had children in the school district that had to leave. And that's heartbreaking, because they moved here for a reason. And their school district is taxing. And this year, we're getting hit from all sides, the taxpayers. From the local level and up to the state, because we have but I think you need to start running your school district and look at the state money as a gift and plan things according to what you have in front of you, and then use that as a plus. Not sit there and depend on the state to keep bailing us out all the time. Years ago, it was special education. We got to raise our taxes. We have to cover the kids. And then the next shiny object was PESers. Now we got to raise the taxes for PESers. I don't know what the next excuse is going to be. So you need to, Mr. Phillips brought up, he's been bringing this up every year since he's been on the board, and before he was elected to the board. But maybe you need to start, draw up what you have. Do 0%. Don't work backwards, start there. But if you have to go to index, don't go above it. Because from what I've been hearing the last couple of months, people here cannot afford it. And you'll lose a lot of good people and students. And you need to reach out to the other part of the community and make us part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Mr. Andrews, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. There's a thing called a pussyfoot. I guess people talking around the issue or avoiding the issue or whatever. And that's why the taxes went up year after year for decades. I was at the Finance Committee meeting last week, and Mr. Whiteleather put out a few numbers. He said the PESA was going up 1.6 million, and someone in the public corrected him and says, not for us, that's the gross. The state puts in 800,000 and Methacton puts in 800,000. I think the big item in next year's budget that's yet to be talked about is the wages in the last year of the MEA contract. Mr. Whiteleather said that at the Finance Committee meeting, he said he'd get that out to the directors in a few days. Has he done that yet? I don't know. There's no reason why that shouldn't be in front of the public if we have to make a decision come January 7th on exceptions, for instance. We need transparency. We need transparency in our taxes, in our spending. Now, the other thing with regard to the MEA contract is it's employment for very good professionals, and they have tenure. Yet, in the 11-12 school year, I reviewed the staffing in the high school, and given a perfect scheduling system, which probably doesn't exist, it seemed to me that there was an excess of 20 teachers. Now, since then, we've had the 12-13 school year, the 13-14 school year, the 14-15 school year, and enrollment in the high school has gone down. The teaching staff has been constant. So, maybe now there's 25 or 30 teachers that we would not need with perfect scheduling. So if we were to, let's say, get better scheduling somehow, and we gave up 15 teachers with no cuts in arts, science, or anything, 15 teachers, that's something over $2 million in the budget. So, these are issues for the new board, and the new board has other issues also. So, I wish you all luck.
Thank you. Additional public comment on board action item? Okay. Any further discussion on Mr. Phillips' motion? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor to direct the administration to prepare a budget with no tax increase. All those in favor? Opposed? Fails 4-5.
If I could just interject, maybe we give the student representatives an opportunity to leave if they wish.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize the time. You guys have something you need to do? Feel free. But you're welcome to stay, too. So it's completely up to you guys. Okay, any additional new business to come before the board? Ms. Hackett?
I would like to make a motion that we decline to file for exceptions to the Act 1 for our budget for next year. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion to decline, motion to direct the administration to prepare a resolution to decline the exceptions for the next fiscal year. Is there a second? Mr. Roth? Okay, discussion? We'll have some discussion, and again, we'll open it up to the floor since this wasn't on the agenda. Discussion?
I'd like to make some comments.
Go ahead.
So as we've just been discussing, this would enable us to have a 2.4% tax increase without seeking any exceptions. We should seek exceptions when it is absolutely necessary. In the current economic reality, we should seek to avoid them if at all possible. I think it's possible to avoid them. Some of the reasons are we've had operational surpluses in each of the last 3 years. In 2013, we had an operational surplus of $860,151. In 2014, we had a surplus of $315,143. And in 2015, we had a surplus of $2,385,437. The current year's budget, we used $835,000 of last year's surplus. However, as we now know, less than 6 months into the year, $400,000 of the expense that was included in this year's budget was actually prepaid and included in last year's costs. In addition, this year's budget includes personnel costs of approximately $250,000, including benefits for employees that have not yet been hired. So we will not be using, likely, most of that surplus that we forwarded into this current year. In addition, a major taxpayer is adding to its property in an amount approximately 12% of its current size. This occupancy is expected for the early fall of 2016. The increased amount of those taxes would be about $270,000 a year. We're also working on a major tax appeal. It's been being negotiated for the last few years, and there's a reasonable expectation that settlement will be achieved sometime before next fiscal year. A settlement would result in a significant escrow being added to revenue. In addition, the Finance Committee has been working closely with the administration to help the board to understand the components of the budget. With a better understanding, the board can more appropriately evaluate the costs involved in running the district and assist the administration in developing the discipline to keep costs as efficient as possible. And I'd also like to say that the administration has been doing a wonderful job working with the Finance Committee as we have for the last year, and has been a tremendous help. So I want to thank Mr. Whiteleather and Dr. Zerbe for that work. That's the reason for my motion.
Okay, Mr. Phillips, you had a comment?
Yeah, I don't know where to start. Yeah, it's pretty funny. People's crystal ball works for 1.7 or 1.9, whatever, where it limits by not taking the exception. Not to be able to look at a zero increase, but it's acceptable that we're going to guarantee that we're going to at least do what, 2.4 before the exception?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we're telling the public we're raising your taxes 2.4% right off the bat. We're not even going to look to go any lower than that, but we'll work up to 2.4 guaranteed. So basically, when people ran against you guys for elections, said you raised taxes for 35 years, you know what? They were pretty much right. Well, they raised 35 years, they raised every year. Well, you know what? It was controlled by Republicans, and I thought you guys were Republicans. And, you know, they were right. You guys tax and spend. No different. No different at all. So you can hang your hat on that. You raise taxes. And even though you campaigned that you were going to hold the line on taxes, it was a farce to the public. You have public people out there saying, hey, we can't afford it. You know what? They're the silent majority. 30,000 people in this district. Most of them are tired of paying increase in taxes. But you know what? You sat here, you voted down a zero tax increase, and now all of a sudden, we'll guarantee 2.4. So congratulations. So.
Can I have a turn, please?
Be my guest.
I've got some old estimates in front of me that I unfortunately don't have a date on, but I think that Stuart had worked up for us sometime 14-15. Now, much of this is known, and I guess it's just what I see is sort of a snapshot into the next year, for whatever it's worth. But 70% of the budget is salaries, basically. 96% of the budget is obligated contractually or otherwise, through the tech center, through facilities, transportation, charter schools, yada, yada. So what this tells me, and again, this was loosely done. It's certainly not point on by any means, but the projections at that time suggested that between last year and this coming year, you're going to need over $4 million. So if that's your starting base, that also included, of the 5% or so of discretionary costs, there was no increase in anything factored into that. Some of those things would include your supplies, copy costs, library tech supplies, school resource officers. That is one of those uncontrollables where the township supervisors would decide on their raises and their increases, and that's just the way it goes. So that's how I sort of loosely see your starting point. And given Mrs. Packett's sort of preview of some things that may or may not happen, given what's going on in Harrisburg, I would say that 2.4 is livable. That's where I am.
And keep in mind, it's 2.4 plus the basic ed and special ed additional subsidy of another 370. So you're close to start. Your starting point is about $2 million more than what you had last year. Now I know that numbers you were looking at are very preliminary, but if you take the 800 net from Peasers that we're going to probably have to pay, and then the MEA salary increases and all that, we're probably going to get close to that amount. So that's why I think that that's a reasonable amount to shoot for.
The staff salaries here, the increase was about $1.3 million from last year.
Additional comments? Additional comments? Discussion? Mr. McFarland?
Just, I'm not exactly clear on what the vote is. The vote is for not taking exceptions, but as I understand it, or at least my impression is that this is a philosophical vote that could be reversed in a week if the new board so wishes. So that there's no commitment being made here by anyone to anything with regard to restrictions. I wanted to be clear on that before we vote.
Yeah, the deadline for taking or not taking, or passing a resolution to not take the exceptions is January 7th. So the next board could theoretically change it or ratify it or do whatever they wanted.
right, so Mrs. Hackett's points are well taken with regard to, additional funds that would likely be available, and they're certainly worth noting for the board going forward. But a vote here is really just a philosophical statement on what we think is necessary, as I understand it.
Well, we'll give the administration direction, but the next board comes into office in a week could change that direction. And, we have since we have until January 7th to file that, then we have until January 7th to change that direction. Additional discussion? Okay. Public comment?
Ashley Wilkerson from Audubon. I actually not planned to get up and say anything, and I hate that I am up here speaking right now. I'm not going to get into the merits of this or the last action that was voted on. What I'm going to bring up is a meeting in February where a vote that was not scheduled was made. And there were a lot of repercussions from that vote, the most significant probably being the fact that we're going to have 5 new board members next week. And I'm looking at these votes that are being proposed, and I don't really see any teeth in them. It seems like it's just sort of a political show of making a statement about tax increases, and I don't understand any reason to do that. I don't understand why we're throwing out votes at the last minute when it's almost 10 o'clock at night and nobody in the public except the people in this room have had a chance to consider it. And I really hope that for the outgoing board members, the last vote that you make in this room isn't going to be one that's solely politically motivated. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional board comment? You next to get it, Brian.
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. Just one fundamental question I think you should ask. And you should ask that man right there. Can he balance the budget with a tax increase no greater than 2.4%? Can you balance the budget? I'll ask that. Can you balance the budget with a tax increase no greater than 2.4%?
We don't know that at this moment in time.
Thank you. That should tell you how you should vote on this matter.
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I just want to go on record saying that I think the public should have been aware of an item like this. Based on the magnitude of the discussion, it seems like it should have been an agenda item so that the public could see it online and be here to comment on it. So I just think it's another one of those things where something of this magnitude is on an agenda and the public isn't made aware of it. Thank you.
Additional comment, board action item? Okay. Seeing none, there's a motion by Mrs. Hackett and a second by Mr. Roth to direct the administration to pass resolution to direct the administration to decline the exceptions for the coming fiscal year. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? 8-1, passes. Any additional new business to come before the board? Okay. Item number 17, courtesy of the floor.
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence, yet again. Couple things, not to bring up buses again, but before you talk to first student, go back and read your contract. One point is that it's not a 10-year contract. You have a 5-year out termination for convenience for any reason you want. So you got to view this as a 5-year deal. 2, failure to perform, you can terminate for cause. You should be aware of that as well. And regarding these damages, there is no penalty at $1,000 per day. That penalty is a maximum of $1,000 per day if the district incurs additional cost because of first students' failure to perform. Okay? You do have liquidated damages, which somebody alluded to. I think Stuart, $50 a day for certain items, $100 a day for other items. But if you don't notify a first student within 7 days of their occurrence, you have no rights to claim liquidated damages. So I don't know if you filed claims with them or not, but if you haven't at this point, and it happened back in September, it's water under the bridge. You're not getting any money back. Thank you.
Shannon Peffer, Audubon. I have a couple quick notes to make, and I will keep it very quick. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, and I'm missing bedtime for the billionth time because of these meetings. First thing, I want to thank everybody for being here this late. Going back to busing, first of all, and Mr. Whiteleather helped me greatly a few weeks ago when my son was missing because his bus just didn't bother stopping. Mr. Laws consistently refuses to return phone calls. I have been waiting for a phone call back from him since August. In the business world, this lack of responsiveness would terminate employment. This would just not be acceptable. In teaching my customer service employees a 2-hour turnaround to get back to their customers, I would like maybe a 2-month turnaround for him to get back to his customer. Haven't had that. Also, in terms of fines to first student, Mr. Earnshaw covered it beautifully. I think in terms of the BP oil spill, we didn't just say, well, we want to maintain a good relationship with them because we need their oil. So think about that. The relationship is there. We need to actually hold them accountable, as Mr. Nascimento said. Finally, I want to draw attention to something in the bills portion of the meeting, and that was $1,895 for a community letter that Mr. Zerbe, Superintendent Zerbe sent out. I'm not sure if this is the same letter. I believe it is, but the letter that I'm referring to is imploring the community to vote a certain way in a public election. Whether or not it turned out the way people wanted it or not is irrelevant. As an employee of the district, and you are an employee of the district, I have a hard time with that letter going out on my budget. Would your administration, your teachers in the buildings, your teachers in the, the administrators in the buildings, have been able to bill that item back to Mr. Whiteleather for reimbursement? I don't think so. I'm frankly very disappointed at this. I think it was extremely unprofessional and not how I would like my tax dollars to be spent. You have a new board next week. I encourage you to work with this board and hope that you'll take the break to reflect upon your communication and what that means to your communication with your new board. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional courtesy of the floor, Mr. Andrews.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. With regard to the busing situation this year, I have some confusion, although I think Dr. Zerbe clarified that the 4 buses in any given day make 10 runs. The issue of the 44 runs, is that a total, or is that per week or per month, that where the runs did not satisfy people? I don't know. But apparently you have 2 contractors for busing. First Student as the outfit for most of the busing, and METS for some small amount of it. And as Mr. Earnshaw said, read the contract. And I think where there's a scheduled meeting with a high-level executive at First Student, it seems to me that the district ought to lean heavily on First Student to work a deal with METS or any other outfit that can bring them employees for the buses that they have. Nothing has been said that they don't have buses. In my engineering career, I'm aware of situations where General Electric had a big project and they would borrow employees from the Boeing Corporation. You know, they wanted to get the work done, and here the work is safely busing our students on schedules. So I think, while it may not be in the contract, I think that at this late date, given the entire situation, that Methacton ought to lean heavily on, attempt to lean heavily on First Student for them to hire METS bus drivers or outside bus drivers to satisfy their contract with us. That would help the long-term relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Ms. Bickelman had her hand up next. Sorry. Yeah.
Karen Bickelman, Lower Providence. I just want to throw this out here. I've been sitting at the board meeting since we were outsourced, April 2014, I believe, and I've heard a lot. I've learned a lot from Mr. Andrews with the enrollment studies and that. Now, with Methacton Transportation Supervisor, when he took over, with enrollment going down in the district, I'm sure that affects the busing, right? I would think. This is just from what I've observed, what I do busing each day myself, and what I hear. So if the Methacton Transportation Manager, when he took over, but I think First Student was still doing the routing, but if the Methacton Transportation Supervisor would have looked at all the routes, maybe he could have maybe consolidated routes, made them more time effective. I think I brought this up briefly at the Finance Committee meeting, make them more cost effective. Okay, and that would also alleviate, however you would, you know, I'm not a router, I don't know how you do that, but I'm just saying, I mean, this kind of would make common sense. If that's done, that also would give First Student more drivers, because runs would become more time effective, probably more cost effective for the district, right? Wouldn't that make sense? So it also, I guess, funnels down from the top. So Mr. Whiteleather is the Methacton Transportation Manager's supervisor. That could have been a route to look at also with a driver shortage problem. Just saying. That's just from what I see. Thank you.
Katie Donnelly, Lower Providence. I'm a little confused. I really appreciate the conversation and the concern about the safety, and people asked about clearances and things like that. My son's already been riding on Mert's bus. It's already changed. We got letters last week, we got phone calls. So I don't understand why this discussion, this board meeting happening now, and we already started this 4 days, they started it Wednesday, so they had 4 days on their new route. I do appreciate him being on time for those 4 days, but a little too late to ask about safety concerns and questions. I also want to go back. I mean, I know we switched a bus stop in the beginning of the school year. It took about 2 weeks for the, one end to the other. I brought it up at this. And I know somebody else mentioned they haven't heard from them since August. I'm wondering, we have a bus transportation person that works for the district. We're getting the phone calls, which is one of the reasons that you guys are upset and want to have, we don't want to get all these phone calls. He's getting these phone calls. He's not. I think people are also more upset because of the communication from our bus director. The communication has been poor all around. So there seems to be, maybe if we were calling for a student, it would have gotten solved and they would have realized what a great, that they need to change earlier than now. I just not sure, maybe truly, that there's a communication back, is the message not getting to them? And if it had gotten to them straight, if we were calling them and not Methacton's bus transportation, who, it's two separate, that mesh there, just, I don't think that's working. Not sure on which end, but that's just been what I've seen this school year. I want to just go back to earlier when you guys were talking about the facility assessment. Mr. Phillips made a good point about, if this money that we're spending, if we don't spend it here, and I know you made it too, Dr. Zerbe, if we're not spending it here, that it's, our people, if they're doing it inside, it's going to cost the same amount of money regardless. And I just want to point out that this is the same thing we were talking about when we were talking about the two companies for the RFP, about the enrollment studies, and we were talking about getting the videotapes and stuff. You said it clearly, we can't always do it ourselves, and that goes, if we were to get just computer programs and we're going to hire, yes, the other company costs a lot more money, but in the end, is it going to cost the same, if we're doing it ourselves? So, thank you.
Thank you. Additional courtesy, Candy.
Candy Alba, Igaville. I listened to what Dr. Zerbe had to say about the bus service, and I was in the room the night you voted to outsource the bus drivers. My first question is, why is Randy Williams and the transportation director not here? I know Dr. Zerbe put all the information out there, but didn't we hire a transportation manager for this specific reason? And we have a contract with First Student. How many read it? I mean, I've had to sign a couple contracts the last couple years, and I will not sign anything that I haven't read first. I haven't had an opportunity to look at the contract, and I would like to. I can't download it because my computer crashed. But the fact is, why is this a problem this year? It just can't be because we're short of bus drivers. There's other things going on here. This is a problem that you would expect the first year of bus company when they take over, not the second year in. And I mean, as far as, the bus is full, I can sit on my front porch and watch the buses go past my house, and they're half empty. Now, there's a lot of cars behind them because the parents are picking them up and dropping them off. So maybe you need to look at, we're far enough into the school year to see exactly how many students still ride the buses. If the buses are coming late or the kids are being dropped off late, the parents are either taking them to school or picking them up. That's less students. If we have less students in the school district, Mrs. Bickelman stated, you need to consolidate. But I think since you voted to spend money to hire a transportation director, he needs to be here. He needs to face the public and explain what's going on. And Dr. Zerbe should demand that. You're his boss. And you're the boss of Dr. Zerbe. We're paying money for a man. I only saw him once. And Randy Williams should be here to explain exactly what the issues are at First Student. Instead of telling us in the audience, well, we might have to pay, the taxpayers might have to pay for it. That doesn't work anymore. Because we were sold a bill that if we sold First Student, if we outsourced the bus drivers who have been competent for years and have done an excellent job and outsourced them, and we have people in charge that have disappeared. I don't understand. I mean, I don't have a horse in this race. Thank God my kids are out of school, and I don't have to worry about this. And I had no problem with it. But there needs to be a lot of explanations. And my other question is First Student paying rent to park their buses on our property? Can anybody answer it? Because First Student owns the buses, they're parking them on school property. Now, when they park it on school property, and I looked into this, the school district is liable if anything happens. They're parked on school district property, they're using a school district building, they need to be paying us rent. Because anywhere else they would have to pay rent. Why wasn't this included? Why are they getting to park their equipment on our taxpayers' property for free? Because I wouldn't let anybody park bus on my property without paying me. So maybe you need to look into that, because if you didn't enter it in the contract, somebody made a big mistake. Because if anything happens, the school district's on the hook for anything that happens on that property. Not First Student, the school district. And that should have been considered before a contract was brought up. So I would like an answer if they pay us rent. And if they don't, why not? Maybe Mr. Whiteleather can look into it. If I can get a copy of their contract and look at it, I'll look to see if it's in there. But I think before, in the future with a new board coming on, before anything is voted on, that contract needs to be read from cover to cover before a signature is put on there and we're asked to pay for anything. Thank you.
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I was at the presentations when we were getting a second enrollment study, and I saw the names of the companies and the RFPs that went out, and that was all in the discussion. And then also for the facilities study, I heard all the different companies that we used, going out for RFPs, getting the best deal, here's the prices and everything. I saw the presentations. Mr. Whiteleather presented his board agenda items today, and he even said about all the different people that we went out for RFPs for the facilities plan, and I was hoping he was going to say the same thing for the transportation for METS, but he didn't say it. He didn't say it until I got up and spoke about it, and then it came out during the discussions that he remembered one company that he called for an RFP. I mentioned 3 off the top of my head, not even writing them down. So I just hope we got RFPs for the best price for the district in order to save money, to get that competitive nature to the, to the operation here. Are there cameras, GPS, and how do the METS drivers communicate? Do they communicate with two-way radios? Do they have two-way radios? GPS was a big deal going with First Student. I'd hate to have my kid on a bus that doesn't have GPS because it was so important in getting First Student. And I don't know if they have cameras. I also, as far as the budget goes, I don't think it's a good idea to give out $10,000 salary increases, after the year starts to administrators. That equates to a 7 or 8% salary increase, plus the 2% that is in the administrative agreement. I don't think, that's not a smart way to spend money. I don't know what the reason was. I didn't understand the reason. It had something to do with job duties, but Mr. Whiteleather lost 2 duties in shopping out food service, shopping out transportation. So, as far as the workload goes, I don't know what the reason was in getting that $10,000 raise. And I don't think it sends a good message going into negotiations with teachers in the year. If, the teachers see that, hey, the board gave out a 7% raise or an 8% raise just willy-nilly, so you're not laying a good groundwork for negotiations at the table. The other thing is, we used to have a facilities engineer. That was changed to a director of facilities. So in the past, we had a facilities engineer. So as far as getting expertise, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but you have roofs, you have HVAC equipment, you have repair histories on those items, you have amount per square foot to replace roofs and the type of roofs. So I think this project could be done in-house as far as the facility studies go. I don't think there was a need to spend the $27,000. Last but not least, I mentioned that my wife was outsourced with 120 other drivers. We pay $5,700 for benefits, and the benefits aren't that great. And we spoke about retainage of bus drivers. The other deal is she's not in the pension system anymore, and a lot of drivers aren't in the pension system anymore because they were outsourced. An individual with 20 years of service that got outsourced can pull down about $16,000 a year in PSER's annuity. Okay, they can get $16,000. If that person would still be working here 10 years later, they can get another $15,000 a year in their pension. That those bus drivers would have had that benefit. So if somebody lives 20 years, that's $300,000 that was taken out of the mouths of these people, because I heard that no one was hurt. So I just want to bring that up again. And those might be benefits that might retain people to provide a good service to the district.
Additional courtesy of the floor? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Phillips, second. Mr. McFarland, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. We'll stand adjourned until December 1st. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.